Howdy, everybody.
Hi, all.
Welcome
Everyone.
to Inspired by Mystery Podcast
Yep.
with
welcome.
me, Sammy Soros, and Dusty Rocket.
Me.
Ta-da!
Yeah. So
Yes.
they say.
Princess made it in. All right. Yes.
Hi, Princess.
I love that you're here from the get-go recently. It's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Princess and Steve. Saw Steve
Hi,
over in
Steve.
RJ's stream, hanging out.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
Our buddy RJ is streaming right now.
Mm-hmm.
We went and said hey real quick before we started.
Definitely.
He's playing some games.
Yep. Racing around playing soccer with a car. I don't know what this game is. Looked good though.
We're out of the loop. I know Mario.
Yeah. It's not Mario, so yeah.
Yeah. Definitely out of the loop. A lot has changed with video games since we have been into them.
That's true.
Oh.
Anything past Battletoads. I don't know. But really, did anything else matter after Battletoads? Nothing.
Nah. But yeah, we are here. We are excited about our show tonight.
Yeah, we are. I'm excited about this show.
Me
I think it's
too.
going to be fun.
I know. It's good. As you can see from the title here, we are going to be talking about ancient sunken cities. Ooh. Which there are very many of out there. Oh, Uncle Chid.
Hey, Uncle
Coming in
Chid.
hot with the follow. All
There's
right.
that Chid imposter
That's
been seeing
awesome.
around.
What's up with that?
What's up with that?
Did you get locked out of your other account? You had to make a new one? Or you just think this one sounds cooler, so you're going with Uncle Chid? 'Cause I think it sounds pretty cool. I like it.
That's good.
Yes.
I don't know. Chidley Michael's in here. I don't know who this Uncle Chid is.
Oh, he's like double fisting it right now. He starts arguing with himself. We're gonna have to call the authorities though.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, we're concerned for
Yeah.
our friend.
Like the two that we had to ban the one time that we're pretty sure was the same person talking to each
Yeah.
other. Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah, that was pretty weird. Yeah, be careful.
Yeah,
Uncle
Uncle Chid
Chid alert.
Uncle Chid's on the prowl.
Well,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you're excited for this topic, Princess. It's gonna be good. You don't see Uncle Chid. He didn't say anything in the chat yet, but he just gave us a
Oh, yeah.
follow,
I got the follow.
which is awesome.
Uncle Chid's been drinking. Well, I better be careful because Chidley is going to have to ban him.
Yeah, right. Or we're gonna have to make Uncle Chid a mod too.
Yeah.
So, anybody named Chid is now a mod. Thank you.
Is your
I just
name
hope he's
Chid?
not
You're a
like
mod.
like creepy Uncle Chid.
Mhm.
What's this all about? What's up there, bud?
Hello. Hello.
Oh, I love it. That's so funny. Or maybe somebody's like faking they're trying to be you
Ooh, somebody
because you're
wants to
so
be Chid.
fucking cool that they're trying to trick people into thinking it's you.
Probably don't have the
I
dance
know.
moves, though.
Highly doubt it.
No.
There's only one Vanilla Ice imposter,
No.
and it's Chid. Chidley Michael.
Unless Uncle Chid thinks that he might be able to match those moves, then
They should have a dance off.
I'm looking for a dance off.
Chidley Michael versus
Yep.
Uncle Chid.
Uncle Chid versus Chidley Michael. We'll stream it live.
Oh, okay. Now that's funny. That would be great. There we go. Yeah. What's up? Now we got the real deal in there.
Hey,
This is
Chid.
great.
Chids. What's up, Chids? Chidlin. Yeah, so
Well,
we're
yeah.
getting into some sunken cities tonight. That's going to be fun. There's way more
gonna be
than
fun.
I really ever knew about. I knew there's a lot. There's a lot out there.
There's a lot
Didn't
out there, but there's
know.
some like super profound ones, which is really cool. And doing the research for this, we learned a lot more about some of these places that we'd either never heard of or heard a bit about, but didn't really know a lot of the information about. So I'm really excited
Yeah.
to share some of it with you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
And of course, you know, we know Atlantis is probably one of the first things that comes to mind when you think about sunken cities. But we're going to be covering Atlantis and the possible locations for Atlantis and some of the theories behind it and all of that next week. But this week is all like archaeological sites that have been found that we do have, you know, we have artifacts from, relics, and we have more information about these. So this is like actual tangible sites that we're covering. And
Yeah.
then Atlantis. will be next week, which is gonna be so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, this all kind of started from a conversation about Atlantis, and whenever we rated Matt Suarez the other week, he mentioned an Atlantis documentary that he watched, and I got that from him and watched it, and I immediately made Sammy watch it, and
It
it
was
was real
very,
good.
very
Super
interesting. It was really cool.
Yeah, so going from that conversation, we were like, we should do an episode on Atlantis, and then started looking around at things and got way more in depth than we thought it was going to go. So we're going to split it into two-parter,
Yes, it's gonna be good.
culminating with Atlantis.
Cool. And Princess said she's seen lots of documentaries on sunken cities. Awesome. So some of these you probably have heard of. Maybe you've heard of all of them. Maybe you have some other ones that we haven't even heard of that you'll let us know about. That would be
Yeah.
great. We can cover them at another time.
Hopefully these are interesting ones.
They are. Don't even worry.
Okay.
They are. What's up, Alf? Scum in the house.
Hey, Alf. Hello, hello.
How you doing there, friend?
Yeah. Oh, I updated your sauce command to include your screen name in it, so now people will know that it's yours. I realized that we didn't have your name in there, so we would just put in exclamation sauce, and people who didn't know had no idea why that was in there. So it's like, well, maybe I'll put Alf's name in there. So now it should pop up.
Pop it in.
Yeah, so now you're in there, and people know.
Boom. That was perfect. Good job.
Yeah.
Good. Good. I'm glad we updated
Getting
that. Make sure
advanced.
everybody knows.
I also updated Joey's Luna Peculiar's link as well, so now it goes to her full link tree instead of just random pages like we had before.
That's awesome.
So that's good.
We love representing for our friends and do a little cross promotion for everybody.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Can't show off your friends. Who can you show off?
Yourself, I guess.
Nobody wants to see that.
Okay, so gosh, where do we start with this one? First off, let's ask anybody in the chat right now, do you guys have any sunken cities that you know about that you would deem your favorite or the most interesting or the most intriguing? Because I'm curious if any of those will be ones that we're covering. I'm just curious,
Yeah.
just asking
Mm-hmm.
to see what you guys.
I think the one that I
Think.
always think of is Bimini Road, and just how large that is really is striking to me. But it's the one that's kind of been talked about the most too. So really, it's one of the first ones that pop into my head, and you know, it's not even like full blown city. Like it's just like a
No, there's no more information. There's the blocks that look like they're cut, but that's all that anybody has been able to see. So nobody knows if it was a city or whatever. There's a lot of people saying it's natural. It does not look natural,
doesn't look natural
at all. But what is it? What was it? It's still this huge mystery. But there's no literature or anything leading to there was once a city in this one region or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like super uber mysterious,
Yeah.
which is cool.
just a weird thing.
It's a weird
And then
thing.
I know there's
for
one
sure.
in Malta somewhere too. I don't know much about that city. I saw something pop up about it
Interesting.
a couple weeks ago or something like that. But
God, there's so many coastal areas with old stuff
it's true.
underneath
This
the
is very
water.
true.
And what's interesting, there's a lot of texts and stuff from back in the day that talked about some of these old places, and some of them they found, and they've like cross-referenced the different texts that are out there to try to figure out. Okay, they talked about these landmarks and how far that it was from these places, and they can try to triangulate where these places might be. But there's still places that were talked about that have not been found yet. Example like Atlantis.
Yeah.
So there's just so much more to find all the time. And a lot of these that we're going to talk about have been found in more very recent times,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Found or excavated within, the past couple decades. So it's pretty neat to see that we're finding new shit all of the time, and things that were once speculated as legend might not be legend after all. They are actual real places. And some of these places we're going to talk about were very, smaller cities, but a couple of them we're going to talk about were huge, giant metropolises of the time that sunk under the sea.
Yeah. So we got Yonaguni-jima. Which
Ooh, I'm not
I'm
aware.
not
of
sure
that.
which one that one is, but it's got to be in Japan.
Yep, and then
Princess,
Princess
is that
said,
the
I
one
think
that you're
of the
thinking
one
of?
in Japan. Interesting.
Yeah, because that seems Japanesey.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
And the Titanic, large enough to be a city.
Right?
That's true. But sunken ships would be a whole other episode, actually, because there's a lot of shipwrecks and stuff.
Yes.
You know, there's ones from antiquity. That's what the Antiqua's device. Like, I keep coming back to this archaeological dig that, or I guess dive, where they pulled up the Antiqua's device and all these other relics and Egyptian, like giant Egyptian tablets and sculptures, and it was just a shipwreck. It wasn't even a city, but it's pulled up some of the best preserved antique Egyptian stuff we've seen. But yeah, sunken ships would be a whole other thing.
Would.
So put that on the back burner.
Yes. And actually, one of the cities that we're going to talk about tonight, it has the biggest collection of sunken ships that they've ever found, ever, that are there in the site of one of these sunken cities.
Nice.
So speaking of sunken ships, there's a lot of them.
Cool.
So over 70
Damn.
were found
That's
over
a
there.
lot in
Yeah,
one site.
yeah.
That's
I know.
crazy.
I know.
Did they sink them on purpose then?
It is theorized that they did sink a lot of them on purpose, actually.
Either that,
that's
or
good.
a battle, or a terrible storm. I don't know why.
Well, it appears as if they sunk a bunch of them to keep others from coming into the harbor, trying to keep the enemies out, which probably in turn sunk other ships on their way in.
Gotcha.
You know, so
Okay. Good idea.
yeah. I mean, it's one way to do it, I
Yeah.
guess. Shit.
Sank 10 of them, got 60 in return.
All right. Cool.
Yonaguni-jima, 10,000 years old.
That's really interesting. We're gonna have to check that out.
That's pretty old.
If we get through all of the places tonight that we already have planned to talk about, then we will add that in, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll check that out on the fly because that is awesome. Good. I wanted to ask what you guys thought about sunken cities in general to see if there was anything specific that you guys already know and love. Hey, what's up, Shannon? Shannon has graced us with her royal presence. Thank you for being here,
Ooh.
Shannon. I love you. Are you excited to talk about sunken cities? Whoa! I am. I totally am. Okay, so let's see. Let's start. Grab my book of notes here.
Where's my notes?
I
Don't
took
forget
so
the
many
notes.
notes. Okay. So, I guess before we get into the specific cities, it's your birthday.
What?
Oh, shit.
It's your birthday?
It is. It's February 8th, and I fucked up, and I forgot. I'm
Whatever, you
sorry.
streamed just for her birthday.
Yay!
Hooray.
Happy birthday, Shannon!
Happy birthday, Shannon.
I'm sorry I forgot to tell you happy birthday. It's only been, 28 years we've known each other? You think I'd remember at this point. I failed. But that's fucking awesome. Happy birthday!
Yeah.
Woo!
Happy birthday, Shannon. I didn't know it was your birthday, so I didn't really fail. I just didn't know.
No, that's okay. Not your fault.
But if I did know, I would have said happy birthday.
We love us some Shannon.
Yeah.
But good, you get some knowledge for your birthday. It's going to be good. So, okay, so let's talk about sunken cities and some of the different reasons that cities might end up under the water. There's a lot of different factors that could be involved that could take a city out. Obviously, the most obvious would be sea level rise over time, because some of these are super old, and you've got the melting of the ice sheets and the glaciers and all of that stuff that absolutely can contribute to the sea level rise. But in more modern times, we didn't see as much sea level rise to actually completely submerge cities. So, what would cause it then?
What then?
Well,
Godzilla.
I mean, it probably is
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Well, it's That's it. It's been proven.
It's true.
That's science.
Well, depending regionally where these places were at, there was a lot of weather phenomenon and environmental phenomenons that could impact these places greatly. So, unfortunately, in the Mediterranean, there was a lot of earthquakes and tsunamis triggered by earthquakes, and this fucked a lot of shit up in that area constantly over and over and over again. And we saw that with the Minoans, you know, the rise of the Minoans who built all this magical stuff thousands and thousands of years ago, 6, 8, 9, 10,000 years ago, and 3,500 years ago they said, we're fucking done. We're not doing this anymore. It is too much. We just constantly kept having earthquakes, having it shake everything up. They were just like, we're fucking out. Which really sucks. It's very unfortunate for people that spent that much time and effort and energy building these like city civilization areas, and then all of a sudden shit just keeps falling apart. You keep trying to patch it back up, and you hear the legends, oh, hundreds of years ago the earth shook, and they're like, we'll be fine. That was weird. We pissed the gods off, but we're sacrificing goats constantly. It's fine. We're gonna be fine. You know, and then all of a sudden, boom, obviously not fine. So that's definitely another factor. And then we have to take into account as well, unfortunately, liquefaction, which is a big culprit for a lot of these sunken cities. They're basically built on sandbars. And when you have an earthquake and a tsunami that shakes the land so much, it basically shakes the sand up, allows the water to creep in, turning it into muck, essentially.
It's like quicksand.
It's like quicksand. So any of the foundations that were once built upon what seemed like stable land no longer are stable, and everything just slides into the fucking sea. So,
which makes a lot of sense, but it's something I didn't really think about until we were looking at these videos and stuff. Like, I knew about liquefaction and like what it could do, but I didn't really think about entire like cities or portions of cities disappearing because of it. But that makes sense.
it does. A lot of it's just built on sand, you know, and unfortunately, it's very unstable, especially when you have, you know, extreme tectonic shifts. Like some of these earthquakes were absolutely massive. I mean, some of the tsunamis also talk about just completely wiping out an entire place in like 2 seconds. Like, what are you gonna do? At that point, there's not really much you can do. There's not many people even left to rebuild when things get washed away like that, and then everything just crumbles away. So, yeah, point is there is a lot of different ways in which a city can become sunken over time, and there are so many all along the coastlines of the world, and they all are extremely unique based on the civilizations that inhabited them. So, you know, just kind of wanted to throw that out there at first because there is no one answer. It wasn't just sea level rise, it wasn't just tsunamis. There's just so many different factors, and each place is unique. So, you know, there's a lot of guesses on each one, or scientific fact proving to why this specific place was taken out. And interestingly, some of them are affected by the same events, which shows that multiple places were hit around the same time because of these cataclysmic events.
Yeah. Which makes sense. If there's a giant volcano that goes off, or like a tsunami or something, it would make sense that it would hit multiple locations and spread out. So it's like, whereas it might only take out one city, if there's multiple beach cities in that little area, like they could all be taken out. And so we could be losing stuff left and right and just not even know about it, you know.
And speaking about losing things and not even knowing about it, here we are today, sitting here, I'm sure on the top of thousands of ruined sites that we have no idea even exist whatsoever.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger ports, the places that were documented, you know, we can kind of trace it back to like, okay, the ancients said that there was a port around here, or there was a trade center, or whatever. So we can say, okay, we're pretty sure that in this area, this was here. Or, oh, like with Alexandria, this was the main Alexandria before it ended up being what it is that we know today. But if it was smaller civilizations, it's very possible that nobody documented them. They could have been so far back before documentation. All of the documentation could have been lost at sea as well.
Yeah.
So there's so many more things under the sea that
Yeah.
we have no idea, which is why what we were talking about the last stream is doing more LiDAR and, trying to do some ground penetrating radar
Hmm.
along the coast. I think would be really cool because we might
Yeah.
find shit that we have no idea is even there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially along the coasts, we'd find all kinds of things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So as technology evolves, we will learn even more and more and more.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Sarah.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Welcome. So yeah, fun. So
Fun.
let's talk first about the oldest known submerged city out there. Does anybody want to guess
Ooh.
where it is? Let's do it. Let's take a guess. Guess what region of the planet is home to the oldest known submerged city? Let's see.
Well, Princess
Take a
says
vote.
the Pacific Northwest was completely destroyed by ice sheets and something else that I can't remember, so I'll never know what was there before the last ice age.
Oh, it was the great flood from the ice dam.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was fucked up.
Right after the Younger Dryas period. Or during, I guess. Which actually, I just looked up that site the other day for the giant dry falls, and it's only like 3 hours from here. It's just east of us. It's like 3.
I know. I really
Just
wanted to go
under
check it
3.5
out.
hours.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah. The market. Save that. There's a couple lakes over there that look real pretty too.
We should totally go check it out.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sarah says Atlantis,
Atlantis.
which, if found, when found, definitely has the possibility of being the oldest. But right now, we are talking about actual archaeological sites that have been found and acknowledged scientifically. So we actually talked about before you popped in that we are going to be talking about Atlantis next week. And we're going to go into a lot of detail about that, about the possible sites for Atlantis, and a lot of more details about that. But at this point, that is still theoretical. But this show, it's going to be focusing around sites that we have found that we do equate to actual historic locations. So, that being said, what's up, Rabbit? Rabbit's here.
Hi, Rabbit.
Just in time.
Just in time.
Awesome.
We're just getting started.
Yeah. Perfect timing. We are going to talk about Pavlo Petri. Or Pavlo Petri, most likely probably pronounced. I don't know how to pronounce it, but we're going to try. And this is Greek.
That makes sense.
Yes. So,
Let's see. How old?
I'm going to pull it up on the map so we can see where that is at.
Oh, Rabbit, not specifically, just because those are generally newer, but there are some ancient ones that were flooded way back in the day. But are we talking about? I know there's one or two that came up that they were purposefully flooded, but I don't think that was on your list.
No, not on the list for today. But actually, it's interesting. When I lived in Georgia, there was a lake called Lake Lanier that was the reservoir, and it used to be a town that they purposefully sunk. It's super fucking weird. Okay, so I'm going to show you on a map where Pavlo Petri is right now. Okay. So here is mainland Greece here. We'll do a little bit more of a zoom out here. So we've got Athens is over here, and then this is the Peloponnese. That's Sparta, and everything is over here in this region. So it is right here on the bottom tip, which is pretty close to Crete. Yeah, Crete is right down here. Which, by the way, Hanya is one of our favorite places that we have checked out. It's so awesome. So it's really not too terribly far from Crete, where the Minoan civilization was extremely prominent around this time as well. So this is the oldest that we have found that can be, what is the word I'm looking for? Basically proven to be this old. It is about 5,000 years old of a site, which is a quite old site. 5,000 years old. And to date, it is the most surveyed seabed area, period.
Wow, really?
Yes. The scientists and archaeologists have spent more time researching this area than anywhere else because it is so old.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So they know, based on the things that they found, that they traded with the Minoans. So it shows that there was obviously seafaring at that time.
Yeah. Wait, did you say 5,000 years ago or 5,000 BC?
5,000 years ago.
Okay.
It's about 5,000 years old
Okay.
at this point.
Cool.
So what they did find, they found Neolithic objects, super old objects. They found some bronze and things that equated to the mid-Minoan time frame. Originally, though, when they found the site, they thought that it was Mycenaean. At first, they were like, "Oh, it's a Mycenaean spot, okay," which is about 1600 to 1100 BC, which is still really old.
Yeah.
But they realized after excavating and trying to figure out what was actually down there, they're like, "Holy shit, this goes way beyond that. This goes way farther back than we ever even thought." So, originally, it was found in 1967 by Nicholas Fleming, and it was left alone. He found the site. It was like, "Yeah, it's probably a Mycenaean site. We'll just leave that be for a little bit." And they left it alone until 2008.
Wow. No way, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is super bizarre
Yeah.
that they chose to abandon the site until they were like,
We
"You
were
know,
busy.
we should probably check it out and go research it more." And that they absolutely did. There are programs the University of Nottingham right now is doing to survey the area and to essentially 3D model rebuild what the town would have looked like.
Okay.
And there is a lot of shit down there. There's at least 15 buildings, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
There's roads, there's cemeteries, and they actually found 2 different kinds of graves, 2 different like specific styles of graves, which show different classes and also show a distinct difference in time period of when everybody was in fact buried there. But it's interesting because they found some of these burial sites underneath some of the structures. They found them in the walls of some of these houses and stuff. It's very bizarre.
Weird.
It's weird. It's super, super weird.
Okay.
Oh, weird. You were just hearing about Fleming in another rabbit hole. That's awesome.
Wait.
That's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy definitely got around. I just don't know why this wasn't prioritized. It's so kind of funny and ironic that he was like, "Yeah, we'll just keep looking, whatever," and then realizes later on that it's the oldest one that we have ever found. So maybe he should have kept going on that, but it's hard when you don't know exactly what you're looking at. And even a 3,000-year-old sunken city is amazing, but apparently 5,000 is a lot more, but it still would have been worthy of checking out, man.
Yeah, it's still something to look into, but no, yeah, I found this thing, seems pretty old. We'll just bookshelf that for a little while. We'll come back to it in the 2000s.
Right? It's so weird.
Yeah, he's gonna leave that out there that long. Like, what are you busy doing? There was nobody else
don't
willing to
know.
research that?
I do not know.
And how did that guy find it and then just, whatever. Like, I found this thing. Next, I'm going to go watch Friends or something. Like,
Isn't it strange? It's really bizarre. Yeah. To
Yeah.
just be like, that's cool. Keep moving along, you know? I don't know. Maybe he was just documenting so many different places. He was just trying to find as many points as possible.
maybe. Or
I
maybe he just couldn't
don't
get the funding to actually
know.
start a dig over there. Like,
Possibly. I don't even know.
he didn't write very good proposals.
Nope. No, he did not. But we do have a couple cool videos that will talk a bit about this site,
Ooh,
which I would like to show you guys so we can learn a little bit more about it.
yeah. I'm ready.
I'm also ready. It's going to be great. Groundbreaking collaboration could tell us more than ever.
Well, my original aim with the Pavlo Petri project was to record it in as much detail as possible. It was first surveyed back in 1968 by a team from the University of Cambridge using measuring tapes and just snorkels on the surface. And they did a fantastic job. But the reason we've gone back 40 years later was to use new technology and to use the cutting edge of technology every year. And it's developing so quickly that each year almost we've used different techniques. Probably now, Pavlo Petri is the most surveyed bit of seabed in the world, and we've applied probably more techniques to it than anywhere else. And every year I think this is the best survey technique. No, actually, this is the best survey. Oh no, now we've cracked it. But now, actually, I honestly believe that we have a technique which is going to, I think, revolutionise the way people do underwater survey. It doesn't just work in shallow water, it works in very deep water as well. And what it gives you is a photorealistic impression of the seabed. I mean, just as the seabed looks. I mean, when I started the project, I couldn't have hoped for the technique that we've now got. Essentially, it's a technique that's been developed by the Australian Centre for Field Robotics. And it's a stereophotogrammetry technique. And what that means is it's a system that uses stereo photo cameras over the site to create a map, a photo map of the site. But not only that, it adds 3D into it for the two different perspectives from the cameras. Equally, they can attach a multi-beam system to this equipment, which is like an acoustic system, which will give you a three-dimensional impression of the seabed. So basically, you mesh the photographs together with the 3D mesh, and you've got a 3D photorealistic surface. You can go down and you can examine individual shards on the seabed, and the resolution is such that you can actually identify them, and then you can pull out, to then look at the full site in over 8 hectares. So really, it's for me, it's just phenomenal. And the nice thing about the Pavlo Petri project is we've used lots and lots of different techniques. So we have lots of comparisons to assess how accurate a particular technique is. And the base level that we used was simply using a total station. That's a laser method. It's a machine that shoots a laser to a prism out in the water. And it's exactly the sort of thing that you'll see people surveying motorways with, or doing building surveys with. You'll see them, in every city in the UK. We used that in the water using just a slightly longer pole and divers out in the water. But that's given us a baseline, a very accurate baseline, to within about 5 centimetres as our level of error for the whole plan. And that's given us as a plan of the city, but it's vector lines. It's just lines like, you would draw with if you imagine a big digital pen. It's a 2-dimensional plan, but it's also got the 3D information, so you can look at it in 3D, but it's just lines. And what this new technique has given us is the actual photorealism, which we can overlay onto that and check the accuracy of it. Because we've also used other techniques. We've used acoustic techniques, which work a wee bit like laser scanners, and you get point clouds. So you get 3-dimensional point clouds underwater. We used a technique called sector scan survey, developed by a company called Kongsberg Mesotech, and it was a group from America, Nautilus Marine Group, who came and did that for us last year. And that was fantastic. I mean, very, very quickly, you can get a 3D point cloud of what's underwater, so you can find things, you can get 2-dimensional maps from it very, very quickly. But the reason the new technique is so good is because it's photorealistic. People can look at it straight away and go, oh wow, that's a submerged city, you know. What's been exciting about working with the BBC and bringing them on board is this year we managed to work alongside CGI movie professionals. These are people who normally work on films like Star Wars, Prime Focus they're called, and they are actually working on Star Wars Episode 1, making it into 3D at the moment. But anyway, so we were actually able to work alongside these people in the field. I mean, normally what would happen when there's a reconstruction is the archaeologists would go and do their work, and then the TV people would make the reconstruction. There'd be no connection between the two. But what we were able to do, because we were getting this 3D photorealism in the field, was actually at the same time have the guys from the CGI company build the walls and work with the archaeologists. So I think for amongst probably the first time we have a data-driven reconstruction. It's based on the archaeology, and it's produced by a team that worked with the archaeologists. Well, essentially what we're doing is bringing a 3,000-year-old city back to life, you know, something that hasn't existed for 3,000 years. And that's the exciting part of it. It makes you change your view of the city in a way that you wouldn't have done just working on it. Because we had these guys working with us, and I was looking at walls and I was thinking, well, this room could be something different. This is a house, but this is a building of a slightly different function. And when you start building the walls and looking at it in a way that you don't see it underwater, you can come away above it, you can look at it, you know, you can really examine it. I began to kind of change my interpretation of certain buildings, and you know, the CGI team became part of the research process. And there was quite an exciting synergy between the CGI guys and the archaeologists in the field. Well, this is the third year of what we hope is going to be a 5-year project, and we're in the process now of applying for the next permits to start excavations on the site. This year we carried out a couple of quite small test trenches just to see if there's deposit surviving on the site. Thankfully, what we found was there's actually still quite a lot of deposit to be excavated. For example, we were finding the top of storage vessels, the top of pithos storage vessels, which we think were imported from Crete, interestingly enough, but showing networks of contact throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. But the top sitting in the seabed implies there's 1 metre to 1.5 metres of deposit still to be excavated underwater. Awesome. So I think the next phase is when it gets really excited. That's when we start finding the material. And hopefully, because the site is a submerged site, because it's underwater, we should be getting organic items, wooden items, the kind of things that don't survive on land, because it's you know, underwater as a site. It's an area that lacks oxygen, and particularly when things are covered up with sand, you get a nice oxygen-free environment. Organic food remains can survive. You know, rope could survive. Baskets could survive from the Bronze Age, which would be a really thrilling find.
Yeah, it would.
We'll use the stereophotogrammetry to record the trenches in 3 dimensions as we're excavating them. And we trialled this year as well, the idea that you excavate a level, a layer, and then you do the stereophotogrammetry technique in 3D, then you excavate the next layer, you do it again, and then the next layer. And the idea is you can go back and you can almost re-excavate the site. And we're recording exactly what we're doing in 3 dimensions as we go through the deposits. So we're creating a record that other people can then go back and use and can go back and analyse and perhaps even reinterpret.
That's so rad.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is great technology.
Totally fucking cool. I'm so glad that so many years later they finally have the technology to do that.
Yeah.
Because even though they like measured stuff out and found it, we were like, well, we don't know how the hell we're going to actually do this. That's a really huge project to start excavating under the water, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm so glad.
Although I would say, as far as like being a archaeologist in the field, like underwater digging, I feel like is going to be way easier than on the land. Like having to like dig through dirt and like rocks and all this, and actually like excavate on land, versus underwater you just kind of wave your hand a little bit.
It's true.
Or
it's
they
true.
have the big like vacuum that kind of like sucks up the sand and just like and shoots it out back behind you somewhere. Like that seems way easier.
It's way easier as far as you know, physically the energy that it takes, but it takes more resources because you need to have everybody, you know, scuba trained. You need to have, you know, enough oxygen for everybody to be able to do this, and there's a lot more that goes into it, I would say. But you're not sitting there in the beating sun.
Yeah, you're
hauling, you know, baskets of rocks out and stuff like that. It definitely is
or like in
physically
Saqqara
easier.
with like the bags of sand, they're just like one at a time, one giant bag of sand at a time.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, here at least it's very close to the surface,
yeah.
which helps too. But some of them that are, there's one that's I think is 147 feet down.
Wow.
Like, that's a lot more intimidating and a lot harder to
That's harder
pull off.
harder to get to underwater.
Yes.
Yeah, and then how do you keep other things from like flowing in and landing on it while you're excavating it? Like a wave comes by and it blows all the sand back into the thing.
Totally.
Like,
How
what are you gonna do
annoying
with that?
is that?
Yeah. And that's what we saw, like at the La Brea tar pits, like excavating the tar pits, like that is a process because they had to suck out the tar, put it somewhere, and then like they had essentially, like if you picture like a tar pit as one round thing, they had divided like half of it, and they would suck out the tar on this side and store it and put it somewhere, I guess, or like move it to another pit while they excavated half of a pit, and then they would pull the other tar and put all that tar into this side while they excavate the other half of the pit. But it's like they divide the tar pits and have to like move the tar around.
That's tough because it's just like sludgy,
yeah,
smelly
and then you
tar.
gotta get all the tar off of everything.
Ugh. I'm
But-
glad that that's not my job. That sounds really hard.
Yeah,
Dude, the La Brea tar pits are fucking weird.
yeah,
It's in the middle
that's real weird.
of LA.
Yeah,
It's
And
just totally right in the middle of a city, and then you're like, oh, let's check this out. You're like, okay, so this is kind of almost seems like it's like the bad vibes and the sludge of all the soulless people in LA just like manifested into this tar pit.
Yeah.
That's not the case, but it felt like it when I
It
was
does
there.
kinda
I was
feel
like,
like it.
kind of made me think of Ghostbusters too, with the pink slime under the city. That was like all the bad vibes of the New Yorkers. I totally
Yeah.
referenced that to myself when I was at the La Brea tar pits. I'm like,
Yeah,
yep.
and all the
black
thousands and
souls.
thousands of years of fossils they'd pulled up out of those pits are. It's miraculous. The display in the museum they have there is amazing.
Oh, it's so cool.
And then out of all of it, the fact that they've only found one human in all of it, that blew my mind. Like, things been there for, tens of thousands of years, and they're pulling all this stuff out, and there's only one person that they've found.
Which could have been food for one of the saber-toothed tigers or something like that had it near the area, or
Yeah.
some drunk guy fell in
Yeah.
accidentally or whatever, who the
Yeah.
fuck knows.
Super
But
weird.
so cool
But,
and so weird for sure.
yeah. Very good.
Okay, so that was really neat to learn about that and all of the specifics of how they are going to move forward with excavating this super old site.
Totally.
So we have another little video here. Give us a little more information about this site. Pablo
Everybody,
Petri.
video here for you today. We're going to go down to Pavlo Petri.
Pablo
Greece?
Petri.
Been talking about some underwater ruins lately. Well, this fits right in.
Pink.
I know some of you may have heard of the ruins right off this little point here. But why don't we just talk about it?
Why don't we just talk about it?
Oh,
Right
I got
down
my
here.
segment.
Right down here is where the ruins are, right under this area, right here. We go over to this diagram here. Blue is the ancient shoreline. The red is the archaeological ruins that were found. So they spread all the way through from this point all the way out to this island here.
That's a lot.
Here you can see
pretty
the
big.
old coastline went out to about here. And then the modern shoreline right here went underwater. Here, look around. The whole area here. Now I'm recording this in the morning. I will get this uploaded later today. I'm going to get outside, get active here for a while. But this website says Pablo Petri, the oldest submerged city in the world. There's a look at some of the underwater ruins here. It says Pablo Petri off the coast of Laconia in southeastern Peloponnese is a submerged prehistoric town which consists of intact building foundation, courtyards, streets, graves, and rock-cut tombs. It is the oldest complete town ever found underwater, and probably the oldest town ever found in the Mediterranean, to date, at least. I will leave several links below. Here is a look just on...
Hold on, just to pause it real quick. So this one was destroyed because of 3 different cataclysmic events that happened.
Oh, so the planet just
Back
had
to
it
back.
out for them.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. So sea level rise probably contributed to it, but it had been destroyed because of multiple earthquakes slash tsunamis that happened over a period of time. So
Wow.
it was not in a good spot.
So
But
they
because
had-
it's not that much far under the surface, the sea level absolutely has rose since. So I'm sure that was a contributing factor to having it be submerged in the way that it is.
yeah.
But earthquakes,
But,
man.
but yeah, if it was like earthquakes and tsunamis, then they just got shaken up. Liquefaction could have been a factor there, and then with giant
Absolutely.
waves coming in and just like settling, probably, and washing away the shore.
Yep. And that part of the Mediterranean, it's extremely volatile area. And especially in the past 5,000 years, oh my God, there's been so much tectonic movement happening over there that
Yeah.
good luck for anything to really make it. I'm honestly surprised that some of the ancient Greek stuff is actually still standing to this day.
That's
Like
right.
the Acropolis, I'm very glad that it's still it's still standing. They've done a lot of renovation work on it, so everything's not exactly pristine the way that it was before. But
Did you see that the earthquake in Turkey and Syria damaged a old castle in Turkey?
yes,
That's
the entire thing was going
yeah,
off
pretty
the.
much just crumbled it. Yeah, that was a bummer.
And thousands are dead right now. They
Yeah.
said that it was theorized that they don't know, but they're thinking it could be 20,000
Wow,
in the end.
that's not
And they're
good.
right now, as we speak, they're trying to dig people out. So
Yeah, it
earthquakes,
was not good. Earthquakes
you
are not
know,
good.
whether it be back in the day or whether it be now, like we are not impervious to them in any way. And they've done so much damage over time. Now we have so many more people living in these city centers. It's that much more catastrophic. But because we, generally speaking, have the ability to rebuild things more quickly with modern equipment and everything, it can be fixed easier than it could back in the day when they had to, quarry all of this stuff, and there was, so many resources that were used to make these places. It was that much harder to transport stone from other places and this and that, and to make everything from scratch. Essentially, you need
Yeah.
mortar. You got to like crush up a bunch of fucking limestone and mix it, do this whole thing, as opposed to just ordering it from Amazon now, and have it delivered to your site where you're good to go. So
One marble slab, please. Send.
right, it's a way different world. But yeah, the earthquakes will never stop. They will keep going, and we are not on stable ground. So the best that we can do is try to build buildings like they have done in Japan that are kind of able to sway a little bit. They have them made so that they can go with the shock waves and not just crumble apart. That's the best that we can do right now if we're going to be building on the earth, and especially in earthquake prone areas. We can just do our best with the technology we have to build smarter, but not all places have the ability to do that. I mean, especially in some of these poorer countries, like they have just like little shacks and huts and stuff like that, and what are they supposed to do? They are not able to utilize the technology, so everybody's just kind of winging it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty rough what's happening in Turkey right now. It's super sad.
Yeah, it's real sad.
So shit. But yeah, I think we do have some of the buildings and bridges out here. They have made some high rises. Some of the newer high rises are, I hate to say earthquake proof, but able to withstand reasonable earthquakes, I guess. So
Yeah, make it out of paper. That way when they fall, it doesn't hurt when they land on your head. That's
that's
good.
so funny. Okay, let's finish this little guy's video here.
On land from where these ancient ruins are, it says 700 meters east of Ephelannos, there is a tiny island that the seabirds always visit. Its name is Pavlo Petri, after which the whole surrounding area was named, where the remains of a sunken settlement are preserved. The beginning of its existence reaches as far back as 5,000 years into the past. I will leave a few links below. Here is a look at an ancient grave found beneath the waters here.
Mhm.
When researchers first got here, they thought this place might be 3,600 years old. And they found out it was probably started around 3000 BC. And that is just the latest guesstimate. Research really got going here in about 2009. Did some virtual reconstructions of what these places might have looked like here. You can kind of tell from this pic the water isn't very deep where these ruins are. Here, I believe this is a home, family dwelling here. Here's what stonework 3,000 years under the sea looks like. See the line of it right here coming along.
That's cool. So this is one you could actually
Here's an
go and
ancient
see just snorkeling.
pathway or trench here, carved in the stone.
No scuba diving needed.
That just looks very ancient to me. Now, I also want to show you this. Is this just part of the ancient coastline? But you notice all the way along the coast here, there's like a double row. It's like a double wall. It goes all the way along here. Is that a natural feature? I'm just not sure. You can see it go all the way up to the archaeological site up there at the top. I did find one pic of that feature here, just off the coast, right underneath the water here. Is that natural or man-made? I'm not sure.
Good question.
Here's a look from the site. It says these ruins are found
with
in an average depth of 4 meters. Should be about, a little under 15 feet. And it is believed to be the oldest submerged city in the Mediterranean. It says this dates back to about 3000 BC and includes roads, 2-story houses with gardens, temples, a cemetery, and advanced water management systems with drains and water pipes. In the center of the city, there was a square with an area of 40 by 20 meters, a place for city discussions. And the buildings were majestic with up to 12 rooms inside. It says the design quality of the city has amazed the experienced urban planners who consider it superior to many of the modern ones. We'll look at some more underwater ruins here. Pavlopetri is so old that it was already ancient during the era of heroes described by Homer in the Iliad, set during the Mycenaean period around 1600 BC. Although Pavlopetri has been known for half a century, it was only in 2009 that in-depth studies were carried out that revealed that the area, about 9 hectares, was already inhabited by 2800 BC, and that the city was swallowed by the sea during 1000 BC due to a series of 3 earthquakes that struck the area. Here are some more of the ruins and what they think these buildings may have looked like, and that's all up for speculation. But it says the ruins of the city are today unfortunately threatened by the very beauty of the place itself. The island of Elefannos and the beach of Puda are in fact frequented both by tourists by land, sometimes hunting for souvenirs, and by various types of boats, which with their anchors put at risk the very integrity of the topography of the ruins.
Come on, no anchoring
Here's another
allowed.
look, and you just kind of have to let your mind's eye do the work here, what we're seeing. But you wonder how old this place really is. It seems cities were built on top of older cities here. When was the first built? Well, that's a good question. I will leave the link to this website below. I thought it was really good. They have a video attached here. Some of their research work that these people did down here. Fascinating site. Disappeared about 3,000 years ago under the water due to earthquakes. That is a video in Pavlopetri. Weird formation there right off the coast. Underwater city that got going maybe 5,000 years ago. This is where it's located. Right down here in the Mediterranean, southern tip of Greece. Thought that was cool. You all have a very safe day.
Super safe. Hi, Waybug.
Hey, Waybug.
Thanks
What's
for coming
up,
in.
Bob?
Thanks for lurking. Lurk away.
Nice to have you.
And yeah, Sarah, that's what I was thinking too. Like that stuff's old. Like with the plumbing and everything. Like they had water pipes and
Yeah.
all kinds of things. Like that's real old. Like, but I guess if you think about it,
That's
like
amazing.
water being so important to life, like for civilization to continue on, like you have to have water. So it would seem like that would be one of the first things that civilizations would figure out how to manage is
Absolutely.
how to make sure you've got water where you need it to be. So that makes sense. But still, that's real old, man.
It's really, really old. But they were saying since there's different layers on it from different time periods, that could have been potentially from later on, but it would be really neat to be able to figure out which layer it is for sure to say this is when they actually started
Totally.
managing the water in that site.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing I was going to say too is the layering of it is interesting, and that's real too, because whenever these civilizations pop up, it's not like it just pops up as a massive city. It's like it does like today, where something starts as a small little village or town or whatever, and like a small little gathering of people, and then it grows and grows and grows, and then they start building like larger buildings, and then that grows, and then there's larger buildings, and then that grows. So these guys are going to be doing the same thing in these ancient cities. So like whatever's there is built on a base that was there from way before that, and they were using these old foundations. And I'm sure they did the same thing where if they didn't just knock a building down and build a new one, they would probably, once one got damaged enough, take that foundation and build a new thing around it and build up on that. Like, so I'm sure those foundations are way older than anything that we're finding.
Absolutely.
So there's no telling how far back it goes, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's neat that they utilized what they had. So the house structure could have been 1,000 years after the actual foundation was built.
Yeah.
Who knows? So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to date things like that when you have so many different variables there on what is being used for what. And then some of the stones, they might have had some kind of earthquake or some kind of situation that crumbled some of the blocks, and they reused the blocks. So it was actually built later, but the blocks themselves were cut beforehand. So there's just so many things lost
Yeah.
to history that we'll never be able to know.
Yep.
We can do our best, or I guess by we, the actual scientists that are doing this
Yeah,
stuff,
they can do their best.
they can do their best to try to recreate it and to try to make the most sense out of it. But nobody knows for sure a lot of these things. We just have to kind of give it a guess.
Yeah. It would be really hard though, like thinking about going to visit this site, like that being like snorkelable.
Yeah.
Snorkelable.
Yeah.
Like that's super cool that you wouldn't have to get like a full-on scuba lessons and like get all the gear and everything. You can go snorkel, and like he said, less than 15 feet. Like that's nothing. Like that's like right there.
And you know, I would love actually if they do scuba classes or whatever, it would be a really great place to practice
Yeah.
scuba diving, because you don't have to be down that far. It's not
true.
as intimidating.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
That's
It
super
is a UNESCO heritage site, so I'm not sure how it works as
Yeah.
far as letting the public come into that area.
Yeah.
I don't know if
That's-
they have tours and things that you're allowed to do. I don't
Yeah.
know.
But that being a thing, I mean, him talking about like anchors and stuff, ruining stuff. That's what I was thinking. Like, who's anchoring out there? Like, you shouldn't be allowed to go out and do that if this is like a concern.
You should not be allowed, but sometimes you tell people they're not allowed and they do shit anyway when no one's watching. So I don't know. I'm wondering if there are any like official tours that you can take
Yeah.
of the area. I would want to make sure if I was taking one that I was taking a tour that was the most conscious of
Yeah.
that and not just exploiting the fact that there's a site right there.
Yeah.
Would never want to
For
contribute
sure.
to the destruction of a site like that. But yeah, the fact that it's like right there under the surface, that's so awesome.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's real close to the shoreline, man.
So fucking cool.
Rad.
Yeah. So there's still more to learn and more to see, and hopefully they will do some really good reconstructions of things, kind of get a better lay of the land and be able to know where the important sites are to really focus the excavation on.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool.
The acceptable oldest city is Jericho, supposedly, and it even follows that philosophy. Yeah. Oh yeah, Jericho's amazing. That city goes back for a long time, and the more that they excavate there, the more and more they keep finding. We did get to see the Jericho skulls,
We did.
which are super
That
cool.
was so awesome.
And those are trippy, very trippy. But yeah, Jericho is it's an amazing spot for sure. The history rolling through that place is mind blowing.
God, there's so much old shit in this world, and it's so exciting learning about as much of it as we can. It's so cool. All right, so we made it through Pavlo Petri.
We made it.
We did. We
Congratulations, everyone.
Made it there. Yeah. Okay, so the next
Next.
big site that we are going to learn about. This is so fucking cool.
Okay.
This is off the coast of Egypt. So it was predominantly Egypt, but had a lot of Greek influence. So much so that the name is Greek and Egyptian at the same time. It's Theonas Heraklion. So, Theonis is the Egyptian word, and Heraklion is the Greek word. So, this place, this is absolutely unbelievable and fantastic right here. This is about 20 miles northeast of Alexandria, and this was one of the biggest ports of the time. This was a huge, massive city. This was absolutely huge. It was 3 times the size of Pompeii,
Wow, no way, really?
which, as we've talked about in the past, Pompeii is absolutely huge.
That's right.
It's really big. And this is at least 3 times the size of
okay.
Pompeii. And because of that, only about 5% has been excavated so far. So there's a lot more to learn, but this is a very famous city. This was said to be one of the main city centers of the Mediterranean region at that time, period. It was also known as the Egyptian Venice because there was canals going through it. So they lived and worked with the water at this time, which was interesting. So that's how they got around. They had their little boats. They could move things, far and wide. They had actual ports for trade. This was a magnificent Egyptian and Greek influenced city. So it began in the 12th century BC.
Wow.
So it's about, 3,200 years ago is when this was constructed.
Okay.
They only found it in 1999. So they had,
really?
yes, there had been tales of wonder of this city forever. They'd always heard about this place and were not able to figure out exactly where it was or to find it. They knew the region, but they had not found it, and they finally found it in 1999.
99. Wow. Okay.
Yes.
So that's fairly recent for sure.
Yes. So since it was built in the 12th century BC, it had about 1,000 years of time to reign. 1,000 years. That's a long time for a city to exist and to be what it is. But of course, in the 2nd century BC, unfortunately, we have earthquakes and tsunamis that damaged it. And it's interesting because over time, it progressively got worse. So it damaged the city substantially. But it wasn't completely uninhabitable. So a lot of the people left. A lot of people were like, okay, this is fucked up. We don't really want to deal with it. And left and went other places. But some of the people were like, no, this is our home. This has been our family's home for hundreds of years. Like, we're going to stay and try to do our best to fix it up and keep it going. And it actually, there was people inhabiting it until the 8th century AD.
Wow, no way. Really?
Yes, so the 2nd century BC. So for 1,000 years after it got fucked up and was no longer the magnificent city that it was, some people stuck around. But eventually in the 8th century, it ended up being fully submerged at that point.
Okay.
They were not able to manage
No
it
way. So it
at that point anymore.
So it was being submerged slowly. So it took it a long time to get submerged.
It took a long
They just
time.
like watched it sinking.
Yes.
Damn.
Yep. Isn't that
Shit,
crazy?
did they party like it was 1999? No, they partied like it was 99 BC. And Rabbit was wondering how they knew the name. So, based on what you said, it sounds like there was documentation of the city, like all in writings and scrolls and wherever. So it was recorded in history, and we knew that it existed, but they had been hunting for it for a long time and didn't know the location of it. That
Yes.
information had been lost. But in 99, we actually found the city that they had been talking about. Okay.
Yep. So it was very well known that this was a city that existed. They just did not know exactly how to find it.
Yeah.
So since it was, in Egyptian territory, there was a lot of Greeks that were living there that, I mean, obviously the Egyptians and the Greeks were very tied for, for a very, very, very long time, grabbing influence from each other. But this was a combination city for sure, which is really neat. So, this very place here, this is around where the 70 sunken ships were found.
Oh, okay.
This is where the ships, 70, in the realm of 70, sunken ships around this area. So let's see, the other finds that they found a huge Greek temple, which was a monumental find, apparently.
Yeah. Cool.
Huge Greek temple. Gold coins, Egyptian statues, jewelry, animal sarcophagi, and Greek pottery. There was so much stuff that they have found at this place. It's astounding.
Yeah. Okay.
Huge tablets, massive sculptures. It is one of the most important finds that has ever been found, and we just found it in 1999.
Wow.
So,
Cool.
yes.
Okay.
So let's talk about that right now.
Okay.
Let's see. There is a really good, it's a long video, but it is a fantastic video that tells you a lot about it. So let's do that one because
Sounds
there's
awesome.
a lot of information about this place.
Just before we get started, I do want to say that there are some mysterious pronunciations in here. A lot of the things I just can't find in my regular pronunciation dictionaries, so I am doing my best. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're all trying to pronounce things we don't know how to pronounce, so it's all good, dude.
The Mediterranean is home to many mysteries and wonders. Both natural beauties and human-made shipwrecks lay at the bottom of the sea, awaiting to be discovered. As the famous poem puts it, right here on the ocean floor, such wonderful things surround you. What more is you looking for under the sea? We got the spirit, you got it here, under the sea. But even the imagination of Walt Disney Studios could not fathom the existence of the location that we are going to talk about today. We are going to take you to the delta of the River Nile in Egypt. 4 miles, or 6.5 kilometers, off today's coastline, under the watery surface, an archaeological expedition discovered an ancient Egyptian city, which was one of the biggest ports in the Mediterranean before the founding of Alexandria. So what was its significance? How was it discovered? And how did it vanish from the face of the earth and from the history of mankind? Well, welcome to Geographics, and today we're going to explore the lost city of Thonis Heraklion. The city of Thonis, known to the Greeks as Heraklion, was
Thonis,
founded
not
in
Theonis.
the 8th century BCE at the entry of the River Nile
He
in
said
what
he
is
doesn't know how
today
to pronounce
the
it.
Bay of Abu Qir. The city remained in existence for 16 centuries
I see the
until the
spelling. I
8th
spelled it
century
with an E.
CE, but then it almost completely vanished from memory. Prior to its discovery, the name Thonis was almost unknown to the history of mankind, but the city had known glorious times in the ancient world as it was the obligatory port of entry to Egypt for all ships coming from the Hellenic world. Its importance was also religious because of the Temple of Amun. This god was the most important in the Egyptian pantheon at the time and played an important role in rites associated with dynastic continuity. And yes, Thonis was only mentioned in passing in a few
Hey,
ancient
Quantum
classic
Chief,
texts
what's
and
up, bud?
rare inscriptions found on
Welcome
land by
in.
archaeologists.
Quantum
Perhaps
Chief,
its
thanks for
fame
that
and
follow.
function
Yeah.
had been obscured by its more famous neighbor Alexandria,
We're learning
another
about the
port city
sunken
founded
Egyptian
in honor of
city.
Alexander the Great in 331 BCE. The Greek historian Herodotus in the 5th century BCE wrote about a great temple that was built where the mythical hero Heracles first landed in Egypt. He also reports of Helen's visit to Heraklion with her lover Paris before the Trojan War. More than 4 centuries later, the geographer Strabo simply noted that the city of Heraklion, with its temples, was located straight to the east of Canopus at the mouth of the Canopic branch of the River Nile. The city was also mentioned by the Greek historian Diodorus of Sicily in his great work Bibliotheca Historia between 60 BCE and 30 BCE. And then silence fell over the forgotten city, but not entirely forgotten, as scholars and archaeologists from the early 20th century continued to be fascinated by the possibility of finding it. In 1933, a promising sighting happened. An RAF pilot flying over Abukir Bay spotted what looked like ancient ruins under the water. He reported the sighting to a local prince who sent a diver to investigate, but nothing was found at that time. It would take almost 70 years and a French statistician to solve the mystery of Thonis.
Tim. I'm sure a lot of people would say that
Frank
about you too.
Godiot is the
Not all of
founder
us
of
say
the
that.
European
But he's
Institute
sharing
for
information.
Underwater
so
Archaeology.
I
As the
like it.
grandson of the inventor of the catamaran, Frank always had a passion for sailing and diving.
Actually,
After
looks like
graduating
an
in statistics and
ex-coworker of mine.
economics in Paris, Frank Godiot worked as an economic counselor for the United Nations, employed in missions in Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, later as a financial advisor to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In the early 1980s, he decided to quit his job and dedicate himself full-time to his new passion, underwater archaeology. Frank is an archaeologist and a historian, and certainly not a treasure hunter, but some of his findings bear that adventurous mark. Over the years, he has explored numerous shipwrecks, including the Spanish galleon San Diego, or the Royal Captain, an East India Company ship that sunk at 350 meters below sea level. In 1996, Godiot embarked on his most ambitious mission. Knowing about Thonis from the ancient accounts and having heard about the 1933 sighting, he organized an expedition to Abukir Bay. First, Godiot assembled his team, recruiting not only archaeologists, Egyptologists, and historians, but also geologists, geophysicists, computer engineers, and expert divers. They all worked in partnership with the Egyptian Ministry for Antiquities. Godiot and his team started surveying the site with the help of cutting-edge, non-intrusive technology. One of the pieces of kit was a specially developed nuclear magnetic resonance magnetometer, or NMR. The highly sensitive instrument was developed by the French Atomic Energy Commission, based on simultaneous proton and electron magnetic resonance, also known as the Abraham-Overhauser effect. The NMR magnetometer measures the absolute value of the Earth's magnetic field. This happens at a rate of more than 1,000 times per second, with an accuracy of 1/50,000,000th of the magnetic field value. And if I sounded convincing reading that, then I did a good job, because I have no idea what that's talking about, and if a physicist wants to chime in the comments, I would be most grateful.
I think you did
but
a
I guess
great
for our
job.
purposes, the important thing is to know the outcome of the NMR survey, and that's the creation of precise magnetic maps of the seabed, which can provide vital clues about the location, orientation, and size of potential buried archaeological features. If the data provided by the NMR and other instruments provided positive clues, then Godiot and his team would dive to start the actual full archaeological excavation. One day in 1999, Godiot was diving at a depth of 20 feet or 6 meters in terrible visibility. Following a clue from the NMR, he was able to find a breakthrough. He had spotted the broken shafts of centuries-old red granite columns protruding from the sediment. These columns were ruins of Canopus, another smaller sunken town close to Thonis, but he could not immediately be certain of it, and his explorations continued. The following year, excavating a nearby spot, he found confirmation of more ruins. This was the foundation of a wall 3 meters thick made of limestone blocks. And with this, he finally had proof that Thonis existed. Godiot's team set to work, a long and tiresome project, which indeed is still going on today. The difficulty comes from the fact that the Thonis ruins were not sitting on the seabed ready for collection, but rather were hidden beneath the sand. First, the team used a water dredge, basically an underwater vacuum cleaner that sucks away sand. Then they created large square holes around the newly found objects and cleaned them with spatulas. Thanks to this procedure, we can admire the breathtaking beauty of these ancient Egyptian statues, which appear suspended in a sea of water and time. In accordance with UNESCO recommendations, artifacts were usually left on site, but Godiot was able to take some of them to the surface for study and conservation. Smaller objects are placed in nets and plastic baskets, while heavy artifacts are attached to a crane. Indeed, other objects are attached to an underwater floating balloon, which just made water archaeology even cooler than it already is. Also, if the team finds something that is too big for the balloon or the crane, they have a special underwater elevator to bring it to the surface. Once an object reaches the surface, it is carefully labeled, cleaned in seawater, and placed in a desalination tank. The tank is filled with 50% seawater and 50% fresh water in order to avoid deterioration from violent osmosis. And if there are any chemists in the audience, feel free to explain that in the comments. Thank Thank you very much. The process of desalination, or removing sea salts from the surface of the object, goes on for days, the point being to avoid corrosion and deterioration. The process continues by replacing excess water with resin to ensure that the volume of the material is maintained. Metal objects are subjected to an even more complex treatment, which involves bathing them in chemical or electrochemical treatments and then covering them with a protective layer. When we learned all of this, we understood one thing, and that's that if Indiana Jones could ever be bothered with actually returning something in a museum, it would probably be ruined forever unless he keeps electrochemical solutions in his fedora. Jokes aside, though, this really does go to show the meticulous scientific work involved with preserving all of those ancient artifacts that we see in our museums.
Tim, you're too much.
After years of exploring Abukir Bay, Gaudio and his experts were able to bring light to an impressive array of historical treasures. Early key discoveries confirmed to Frank that he found what he was looking for. First, it was that of the Naos, a monolithic chapel dedicated to the god Amun. An existing relic, the stele with the decree of Canopus, placed this shrine in the city of Heraklion. Another find confirms the location's identity, a gold plaque inscribed in Greek indicating that King Ptolemy III had founded a shrine to Heracles in this place. Up until now, historians were convinced that the legendary Thonis and Heraklion were two separate cities, but another stele found by Gaudio named this city as Thonis. This clarified that there was only one city known with different names by Egyptians and Greeks. The same stele clarified the main function of the port city. It was a gateway to the Egyptian markets for Greek goods whose importers had to pay a levy to the pharaohs. In other words, it sort of acted like customs. The location of Thonis controlled access to the Canopic Channel of the Nile Delta. By its position, it was the main port for trade with the Hellenic worlds. Further proof that Thonis was at the heart of sea trade routes between these two important civilizations was the discovery of the remains of more than 64 shipwrecks and 700 anchors. Many of these ships appeared to have been sunk on purpose. According to Dr. Robinson, a collaborator from Oxford University, this might be a means of blocking enemy ships from gaining entrance to the port city. Thonis was not just a place for business, but also for worship. After their dangerous journey, sailors dedicated offerings to the gods. Remains of their gifts were found scattered on the floor of the bay, such as small votive anchors and amulets. Near the Naos, or chapel we described earlier, archaeologists found a large basin of red granite, probably part of a large temple dedicated to the god Osiris. The basin contained 3 colossal red granite statues over 5 meters high, representing a king, a queen, and the god Hapi. Hapi was the personification of the periodic flooding of the Nile, which spelled fertility and abundance for ancient Egyptians. The temple was lined with more bronze statues of divinities and ritual instruments, as well as dozens of small limestone sarcophagi. These are believed to have once contained mummified animals put there to appease the gods. Gaudio so far had found very few objects from the Roman period. This may indicate that the empire did not attribute great importance to Thonis after their conquest over the Ptolemaic dynasty, of which Cleopatra was the last ruler. But his team did find more clues of the presence of the Byzantine Empire, the successor to Rome. The presence of Byzantine jewels and coins helped to place, in the 8th century CE, the final collapse and sinking of this once grandiose city. These spectacular findings brought to the surface can be seen in person in Alexandria in 2 permanent exhibitions at the Museum of Antiquities and the National Museum. Frank Gaudio's foundation, the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology, also organizes touring exhibitions which have visited Europe and the United States in the past. Please do check out the video in the description for links to the foundation and to Frank's own website, where you can find some stunning photos of the underwater relics. But now, let's move on. We just talked about what we found in Thonis, but, well, what did it look like?
I don't know, man. Tell me what it looked like.
Majestic as fuck.
Studies on artifacts have found that Thonis was huge, hinting that there is yet more to find. To put it into context, Frank said to the Telegraph, "You know Pompeii? Pompeii is a very small city. They started archaeological excavation there in the 18th century, and it is still not excavated fully. Thonis Heraklion covers an area that is 3 times the size of Pompeii."
Damn.
Having been founded before Rome and Alexandria, Thonis once held the record for being the largest port in the Mediterranean, which means that it was huge not just in size, but also in importance. It was a trade route to Egypt, an economic powerhouse, a center of worship, and it also had great political significance. Every new pharaoh had to visit the Temple of Amun in Thonis in order to receive the title of their power as universal sovereign from the supreme god Amun. Amun was a solar god associated with the sun, with creation and power. Over the centuries, its worship had grown to the point of eclipsing many other deities. It is believed that Egyptian religion became a monotheistic cult of Amun in the 14th century BCE. At the time of Thonis's heyday, Amun's popularity had spread to other parts of the Mediterranean where his attributes were combined with those of existing deities. In Rome, for example, you had Jupiter Ammon, while the Hellenic world had Zeus Ammon. Even Alexander the Great, having conquered Egypt, sought legitimacy from Zeus Ammon like the pharaohs had before him. But going back to Thonis, an analysis of the coins and ceramics found underwater has led us to believe that the city was at the peak of its opulence from the 6th to the 4th century BCE. The city extended radially around the temple of Amun, traversed by a network of canals, which must have given it the appearance of an ancient Venice of the Nile. On the islands and islets, inhabitants built their dwellings and secondary sanctuaries, all joined together by a network of ferries, bridges, and pontoons. The landscape was completed by further shrines and esplanades supporting pavilions, which overlooked artificial lakes. Like Venice, Thonis also had its Grand Canal. It was located by the second most important temple of the city, that of Heracles. This flowed through the city from east to west and connected the port basins with a lake to the west. Merchandise from shipping was taken to this lake, then through a secondary canal and to the nearby Canopus, which in later years would be connected to Alexandria via another waterway. All this sounds like a landscape out of a fantasy novel that may well have rivaled real Venice in architectural beauty. And amazingly, this is probably not even the full picture. Frank Godio estimates that only 5% of the city has yet been discovered. As we know by now, Thonis eventually declined in importance, and its own physical structure gradually slipped into the sea from the 3rd to the 8th century CE. This wasn't a sudden traumatic catastrophe like the events at Pompeii, rather a slow descent, which, as sad as it sounds, likely didn't cause any victims. But why and how did an entire city vanish into the sea and then just disappear from memory? Experts such as Godio and Professor Cunliffe and Dr. Robinson at the Oxford Centre for Maritime Archaeology have formulated a bit of a theory. They think that Thonis suffered from a structural flaw which undermined its overall strength. The Egyptians had built a city upon a portion of the Nile Delta which was particularly susceptible to subsidence, a gradual collapse of the sediment under its foundations. The collapse may have been worsened by the sheer weight of the colossal structures built upon the many islands of Thonis. The area was also prone to earthquakes, which may have caused enormous tidal waves. This implies that even before its final sinking, Thonis had to wage a centuries-long struggle against the elements. Eventually, rising sea levels and subsidence may have caused a final collapse in the area, causing the entire city to drop by about 12 feet under sea level. But now we move on to the question of how did it disappear from our memory? This is even more difficult to explain, and we can only really speculate here. As we know, the foundation of its rival, the great port city of Alexandria, may have contributed here. Alexandria became the main hub for maritime trade in the eastern Mediterranean, and the importance of Thonis, it just waned over time. When the Romans took over, they dealt another blow to the city simply by ignoring it. As testified by the almost complete lack of Roman-era findings, the empire must have favored Alexandria or other ports for their trade or naval purposes. Another contributing factor may be religious. Thonis was the main religious center dedicated to the cult of Amun and, to a lesser extent, to Hapi and Heracles. Romans may have diverted the attention of worshippers to other cults, and during the Christian era, the cult of Amun barely resisted until the 5th century CE, before disappearing completely. All these possible theories do not imply that records of Thonis were actively removed from history. What may have happened is that historians, chroniclers, and other authors may have simply started ignoring the proud port, favouring descriptions of Alexandria and its lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And the world would have continued to ignore Thonis, relegating it to a couple of passing mentions in ancient texts, if it weren't for a statistician and a magnetometer.
Thonis' old hat. Nobody cared anymore.
The story of Thonis carries a warning. Our cities are not eternal. Nature in the form of subsiding foundations, tidal waves, or rising sea levels can exact its toll and reclaim our proud accomplishments to an eternity under the sand. Or rather, maybe than nature itself, I should say our lack of respect and of consideration for nature. Warnings aside, I do hope that this video has inspired you to learn more about the wonders of ancient Egypt, and maybe even seek out one of the exhibitions about the findings at Thonis. What I've learned for sure is a newfound respect for the work of archaeologists, historians, and other experts who support them in their work. In the age of Wikipedia and Google Maps, it's easy to assume that we know everything about our world's history and its geography. After all, our presence on the Earth as part of structured civilizations was just a blink of an eye. But it is fascinating to find out that out there is still plenty to discover about how our ancestors lived, prayed, fought, and eventually vanished into oblivion. As for me, well, I'm off to buy a magnetometer on eBay. I'll see you next time.
I loved it. I thought that was such a wealth of information about this place.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's super cool.
this guy was amazing.
And yeah, how crazy that we could just forget about it through time like that. Like it being so big and so prominent, and like it just kind of fades away.
Yes.
Like weird.
It's crazy to imagine, like, you know, somewhere like Rome or, you know, Athens, even New York City, you know, like one day just being like a thing of myth and legend. And we're like, yeah, people have talked about it, but I don't know. Did New York City really exist? Was it really the city that never sleeps? You know, like it's crazy to just think about how things can get so lost in time. I mean, now we document everything so much more, but back in that day, I mean, it was like inscribed on rock. You know, it was extremely hard to have this information be passed down. Either that or on papyrus that hopefully didn't burn up in the Library of Alexandria or get stolen or just degrade over time.
Yeah.
You never know. It's just, it's crazy. Thousands of years some of these places existed. And then there's some accidents and they're like, never mind that.
We just move along. But yeah, this one seems like it started being forgotten about before it was even gone. I mean, like with Alexandria popping up and everybody, it just, you know, was the hip new thing. Everybody started going over there and paying attention to that one, so it wasn't really being written about anymore. So it just kind of started fading away, you know. But after 1,000 years, I guess it's got to happen at some point.
Yep. Yeah. But it was huge and beautiful.
Yeah.
So what a
well, that's cool with all the water running through it like that
shame.
too.
You know, like that's just sad that it was lost in that kind of way. And then this is like a little short news clip from when they found it, and it shows some of the cool stuff underneath. So check this out before we go to the next spot. Oh, maybe this is
1,200 years ago, a thriving city disappeared beneath the Mediterranean, never to be seen again. Countless lives were lost, the equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars destroyed, and an entire population, an entire livelihood, fell into the shadows of the sea forever. For centuries, the famous lost city of Heraklion has straddled a line between legend and reality. Only scriptures indicated its possible existence. But now, thanks to one persistent man, we have the answers. The lost city, finally, has been found.
Look at that.
And it's as beautiful as it is mysterious. How was it uncovered after so long? And how did it sink in the first place? Let's find out.
This is cool. This has got
Long before Heraklion found its new home deep beneath the surface of the Mediterranean, it was a booming, vibrant metropolis, welcoming travelers and ships from near and far. You've likely heard of the city of Alexandria, which still stands today as one of Egypt's most popular waypoints, and has been doing so since 331 BC. But before Alexandria became known as the dominant Mediterranean port city, that title belonged to Heraklion, which stood as an obligatory port of entry to Egypt for any vessel sailing over from the Greek world. Not only was Heraklion a bustling city for welcoming ships, but it was also an important religious center, thanks to the temple of Amun, who was god of the sun and the air. Amun was one of the most important gods during the New Kingdom era, which spanned about 1570 to 1069 BC. The city, which sat near the canopic mouth of the Nile, about 20 miles northeast of modern-day Alexandria, was built around the Grand Temple and was crisscrossed with a network of canals, linked by ferries, bridges, and pontoons. Imagine Venice, only ancient Egypt style. Each of the islands played host to small homes where the residents went about their daily lives ever since the city's founding around the 8th century BC. It seems insane that such a flourishing, important metropolis could simply vanish into the ocean, never to be seen again. Yet in the 8th century AD, that's exactly what happened. But how is something so extraordinary actually possible? Once a grand city, today its history is largely obscured, and no one is entirely sure of the precise chain of events that caused it to sink. However, we do have reputable theories. Research suggests the site was affected by extensive geological and cataclysmic phenomena. In other words, repeated natural disasters, which slowly caused the sea levels in the area to rise, simultaneously as the earth under the city became increasingly unstable. As the centuries went by, the damage took its toll. The turning point came at the end of the 2nd century BC, likely after a severe and drawn-out flood, an earthquake, or both. That's when the ground on which the central island of Heraklion was sitting succumbed to soil liquefaction. The hard clay morphed into an unstable sludge-like liquid, and the slew of buildings, the Great Temple included, started collapsing violently into the water. While some brave residents chose to stay in the area, into the Roman and Arab eras, by the end of the 8th century AD, the final slivers of the city had been engulfed by Mother Nature.
So sad
For the better part of 1,200 years, the famed lost city became nothing more than a memory, and then nothing more than a story. As we pushed into the 21st century, scientists and archaeologists struggled to delineate reality from fairy tales. But then, one man changed everything. That man was French archaeologist Frank Godillot, an enigma in the industry who is often considered the pioneer of modern maritime archaeology. Frank was formerly a financial advisor to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and various other governments, but it was in the 1980s that he swiveled his career a complete 180, focusing on his true passion, underwater archaeology. He founded the European Institute of Underwater Archaeology in 1987, of which he remains president. While the past 3 and a bit decades have resulted in numerous shipwreck discoveries, including 2 Spanish galleons, arguably there is no find more impressive than the Egyptian Atlantis, Thonis Heraklion. Contrary to some ancient belief, Heraklion and Thonis were in fact the same city, just with 2 names. Heraklion was Greek and Thonis was Egyptian. From the mid-1990s, Godillot and his team spent years screening the vast area of the Abu Qir Bay. That's this spot right here, off the coast of northern Egypt. Then, 4 miles or 6.5 kilometers off Alexandria's coast, in the year 2000, Frank spotted something revolutionary. As the divers swam, a colossal stone face emerged from the watery shadows, the first of many relics they were about to uncover. It took years to map the entire city's ruins, scattered across the western part of Abu Qir Bay, largely at a depth of approximately 33 feet, or close to 10 meters. The team finally achieved a size measurement for the lost city, 6.8 by 9.3 miles. Well, that's the size of their research field at least. Who knows if there could be more out there, swept away by the currents over time. To put that in perspective, the research field is larger than the entire city of Paris. But how does one dive team manage to find such relatively condensed ruins in a sea which spans a total of 970,000 square miles? In cooperation with the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, they were able to utilize the most sophisticated technical equipment, using a water dredge, which is basically an underwater vacuum that sucks away the sand. Frank's team created large, square holes around any newly discovered objects. Once they'd created a space to work in, they carefully cleaned the artifacts using, of all things, spatulas. Dredging isn't a cheap option. Time and time again, we've seen bills skyrocket into the hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the size of the operation. The Geraldton Harbour dredging project in Western Australia equated to a total cost of $150 million, or $33 per meter, just over $10 US per foot. Godillot also needed to hire cranes capable of lifting 50 tons from beneath the surface, pay his divers, operate vessels, pay for artifact storage,
Good night,
and
Mr.
more.
Steve.
All up, the
Mr.
expedition, which
Steve,
continues to
thank you,
this
my
day,
friend.
could have easily cost hundreds of millions. Thanks to the expedition, Frank and his team have shone a vital light on history and have managed to find an array of astounding, near-priceless artifacts. Highlighting the long list of findings are gold coins and weights made from bronze and stone, slabs of stone inscribed in both ancient Greek and ancient Egyptian, the remains of more than 64 ships, an array of enormous 16-foot statues, hundreds of smaller statues depicting minor gods, numerous amulets and religious charms, and more limestone mummifications than they could count. Individually, these artifacts could be worth millions to museums, if not more. The underwater archaeological research in Thonis Heraklion is ongoing until today, and Gadeo has stated that merely 5% of the city has actually been discovered. Imagine how many other million-dollar objects are out there waiting to be found. Gadeo's project has not only excited the diving, scientific, and historical-focused communities, but also has thrown Egypt further into the tourism limelight. While a research site is off-limits to the general public, there is plenty more to see across Egypt's coast, which helped the nation grow its tourism revenue from $12.57 billion in 2019. That's not exactly surprising. It is, after all, home to some of the world's most intriguing ancient landmarks. Although, as it turns out, Heraklion is far from the only Mediterranean sunken city. Cast your eye over to the underwater city of Pavlopetri in Greece. This former metropolis is thought to have sunk long ago, around 1000 BC, due to an earthquake that shifted the surrounding land, which affected many of the Greek islands. After years of excavation, the entire city is so far known to be at least 861,000 square feet, with a vast open plaza as the city's center point, surrounded by well-designed roads, houses, and temples. In fact, if we look beyond the Mediterranean, the number of submerged cities accelerates even further, from China and Japan to Jamaica and Turkey. Over in Japan, you'll find the pyramids of Yonaguni-jima, just a few miles away from Taiwan. Experts have locked horns for years as to whether these pyramids, which resemble those found in Mexico and Central America, are man-made or naturally occurring, and we still don't know for sure. Either way, the ruins have been submerged for at least 2,000 years. In the same corner of the world as the pyramids, you'll find arguably the most visually enthralling underwater city on the planet, China's so-called Lion City, otherwise known as Xicheng. Spanning the equivalent of close to 62 football fields, Lion City is over 1,400 years old, dating back as far as the Han Dynasty. As you can see, the entire city has been preserved nearly completely intact. What's most bizarre is that Lion City, the former center of politics and economics in the eastern province of Zhejiang, was sunk deliberately. The Chinese government decided a new hydroelectric power station was required, so they built a man-made lake, burying the area under 130 feet of water. Over in Jamaica, the former booming city of Port Royal served as one of the most important trading ports of the New World. That is, of course, until it fell to the ocean floor at the hands of a devastating earthquake and tsunami in 1692. Amazingly, the ruins are still widely accessible. You can dive and explore the lost city for just a few $100. As we venture over to Turkey, you'll find the Middle East's second largest lake, Lake Van. While the lake itself is worthy of a postcard, welcoming tens of thousands of tourists every year, it's what's below the surface that proves the most intriguing. Hidden down on the Lake Van floor is a 3,000-year-old castle, which is thought to be linked to the remains of the ancient Urartu civilization. The castle spans over a mile, with its walls towering well over 10 feet high. Does this make you want to visit Turkey, or Jamaica, or Egypt? Or would you rather go somewhere else? Let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to The Richest, and have a great day. Catch you next time.
Yes, it is always an option.
Always an option.
Cool. I really like the way that they did the digital reproductions of the cities to be able to really get a visual of what it would have looked like at that time.
Yep. Yeah, that was really cool. Because, in the first video, it was kind of hard. It was cool they were showing all the actual footage, but it was hard to imagine what it looked like. So, but the first one did do a real good job of showing where it was in the, like on the map and like where it lies, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that they finally found it.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
Hooray.
Okay, so since we're in that region, of the world, right near Alexandria. We are going to talk about Anti-Rhodos, which is old Alexandria, as they called it.
So they say.
And it is where Cleopatra's palace is.
Oh,
And Mark Antony's house and structure was in that region as well.
okay.
So this is super cool. So Anti-Rhodos, which basically means like anti-roads, which I guess there was a feud between the people of that area and the island of Rhodes, which is Greek. So this was anti-roads. Fuck you.
Anti-roads.
They pretty much named it because they were
Okay.
not into it, which I thought is pretty fucking funny. So,
I'm gonna start calling New York anti-LA.
yeah, you could. You definitely could. So, so this is near the seafront of modern Alexandria. It's about 16 feet under the water right now. I will show you here. So you can see there is Alexandria, and there it is right off of the coast there.
So is it, go back to the bottom one? I don't know what all we're looking at here. So is
This
that
is
just like,
Egypt,
okay, so just
and
the
this is
very
the
northern
coastline.
edge.
Yes,
Is that the Nile going up through there?
yes.
Okay,
Oh,
gotcha.
over this way. Yep.
Okay.
So this spot here, it was a smaller area. It was not as massive and large of a location as the last place that we checked out, but they believe that it was the actual dwelling of Cleopatra
Oh,
at that time, which is
Really?
awesome. Yep. Yep. That was her royal quarters. And there are sphinxes. She has a sphinx that has like the head of her father carved onto it. There's a lot of things that were very specific to Cleopatra. Ones that were carved of her children and such. So it looked like she had like a lot of sculptures done to honor her family at her palace, which was actually a more modest sized palace,
okay.
which is cool. It was still a reasonable size.
Still
but
a palace.
It's still a palace, but it wasn't like some massive, huge complex or anything like that.
Okay.
So they're saying about 250 BC or so is when they believe this was started. And around the year 365 is when they believe that the site no longer existed because of an earthquake
Oh,
in
man.
around 365.
Earthquakes, man, just sinking city left and right.
Yes. So they think it sunk it specifically at that time. But really neat that they were able to find what they believe is the palace of Cleopatra. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah.
So I believe this is the news one? Let's see. Maybe not. Let's see. Let's talk about her underwater palace now.
Oh, she had fish. That's nice.
Yeah. Pets. Lots of pets.
Yep, a lot of pet fish. I can't imagine being a diver and just swimming along and finding a giant Egyptian sculpture.
Oh my god, seriously.
You know, like a sphinx sitting on the bottom of the ocean.
That would be the most amazing feeling in the entire world.
Yeah. That'd be definitely one of the greatest points of your life.
Yeah. Be the first person to ever see it
Yeah.
in thousands of years. This music is really epic.
It is pretty epic. Especially for this sharp thing right now. Cool.
Fucking cool. Okay, so that gave a little insight into what is under the water there. The ship
It
that
is
they found.
interesting, though, with all these artifacts being under there for this long, that there's not stuff growing on them. Like, there's not barnacles, there's no, like, coral anything on them. There aren't,
That's very
like,
interesting, yeah.
plants and stuff growing on it. Like, I wonder why that is. Or did they go and clean them off before we got these photos? Like, did they essentially excavate them before they put these photos out there? Because it seems like, I mean, like all those rocks and everything around them in the background have all kinds of stuff growing on them, and that's kind of what the ocean does. Like, it's weird that they're
Yeah.
so clean.
Maybe for whatever reason, the plants and creatures don't favor living on smoother rocks like that. Maybe they want something more porous, and the granite is certainly not porous. So I don't know. That's total speculation.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, they might have been brushed off or something.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. But that was really cool footage. That's cool. You'd never seen that one. I saw that and was like, ooh, how neat. We get to see.
Yeah,
That's so awesome.
yeah, they've got to be cleaned off or something for that, because I don't know, that seems crazy.
Okay, might be the water that
chemistry
somehow,
of the water.
maybe so.
Well, I don't know, like in that thumbnail right there, there's all kinds of stuff. Like, let me pull this up. Let me get to the one I'm thinking of.
I mean, in any of these shots, really, there's a lot of.
This
There you go.
one is the one
Yeah.
I'm looking at, though. So in this one, like, look at all the stuff on those rocks back there. Like, all this stuff growing around. Like, I don't know. It seems like the statue would have that in it, or that this would be filled with stuff, and there'd be things growing in that, or something. Like,
They might like
even
the
if
acidity of the limestone.
maybe,
that
yeah,
it's
maybe
on.
whatever it's whatever it's made out of, the life is just like, we don't like it. But
Yeah.
but
God,
either
look
way,
at that fucking statue.
miraculous.
God.
Whatever it is.
It's just been sitting there
Just sitting there forever.
for like 1,000 years. Oh, fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
Just hanging
So
out.
awesome.
Super cool.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah, I'm glad that stuff's still there and we can actually see it, though.
Yes.
It's weird how
Me
water being
too.
a solvent is one of the better preservatives that we have on the planet when it comes to old stuff. If this was just out in, like, they talk about the lack of oxygen helping to keep stuff kind of staying around.
Except for the metal, the salt water degrades metal
Yeah,
so much unless it's
metal's not
compressed
water.
under the sand, you know.
Yeah.
But for the stone's holding up pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So they excavated a bunch of this stuff and put it in the British Museum. So,
They do.
like
Such
you
as,
do,
Such as Rabbit was mentioning up there.
yeah, we just steal
They're
everything.
the secrets of ancient
So here we go,
Egypt,
show a
which
little
for
bit.
thousands of years lay submerged beneath the Mediterranean. The treasures belong to two sunken cities which were thought to be the stuff of myth. Now the artifacts dredged up from the ruins go on show for the first time at the British Museum. Here's our arts correspondent, Brenda O'Manus.
Submerged underwater, a granite sculpture of the god Happy and a striking pharaoh. These majestic underwater discoveries are about to become a major box office draw. Buried deep in silt and clay at the mouth of the River Nile,
so
these
awesome.
fascinating artifacts from lost Egyptian cities were discovered
Ooh.
and are now on show at the British
Found an
Museum.
earring.
In the 1990s,
Cleopatra's earring.
maritime archaeologist Frank Goddio began investigations that led to these great finds. The once magnificent Egyptian cities of Tanis Heracleion and Canopus, buried under the sea.
Canopus and Tanis Heracleion are huge sites. We started excavations there, but I would assess that we haven't excavated more than 5% of those two sites in 20 years. Thus, I presume that we will need several centuries to go ahead with those projects and to finish them, you know.
It's the British Museum's
Several
first major
centuries.
exhibition of underwater archaeology, and as well as showing the treasures from these once great cities, it tells the story of how two powerful ancient civilizations, Egypt and Greece, interacted during significant periods in their history.
We know that Tanis Heracleion and Naucratis used to work together in the collection of taxes on imported and exported goods, and this royal decree actually talks us about this taxation.
By the 8th century AD, the sea had reclaimed the cities where they laid undiscovered for over 1,000 years.
The two cities are lying under 8 to 5 meters of water, which is not deep, but they are covered by 1 to 3 meters of sediment. This is why they had never been discovered before.
These amazing artifacts
Okay,
sit
that
alongside
makes a lot of
collections from Egyptian institutions and important objects from the British Museum, bringing the extraordinary story of these lost cities to life. Brenda Manus, BBC London News.
So yeah, it was all covered in 1 to 3 meters of silt, which is part of why they had not found it before, but also kept it preserved without having a bunch of creatures on it.
Gotcha. So everything we were looking at had been cleaned off.
Yes.
Okay.
So they had the sand sucker. Yup.
Yup, sandsucker.
Yes. Awesome. That is so freaking cool. And who knows how much other stuff is over there in the, the region of Egypt that is just covered underneath all the sand. But that's cool. Godillo is saying that, it's such a huge project, that these are such large areas, that it is going to take centuries for a project to be able to uncover everything that's there.
Yeah.
But they took the main statues and they brought them over to the British Museum. So you can see some of them there. So that whole area, that whole region near Alexandria is just teeming with artifacts everywhere. It's crazy to think about how different that area was at that time.
Yeah.
Now Alexandria's
how
a modern city and so different.
Yeah. Yeah, and how different the shoreline was and what the landscape looked like and the climate. I mean, just learning about, the Sahara having trees and water and being marshy in some areas. It was much, much different way back in the day. So, whatever world they lived in was way different than what we see today.
Yep.
Interesting.
And it's hard to try to reconstruct that in our minds when things are covered and we're just taking pieces out at a time. It's why I loved what they were doing at the other site at Pavlo Petri, where they're excavating a layer and they're surveying it and then doing another layer. So they're trying to build a visual of what it looks like. I wish they would use that technology in more places, but it's huge projects that cost an awful lot of money. So, can understand. You have to figure out what is the most important. But you think that, Cleopatra's palace is pretty important. But she was, newer compared to some of the older stuff that they're finding. So that's the thing. Do you go back older? Do you do, something that's more known and of interest, generally speaking? But I say go older, personally.
Yeah, go older. But she was a prominent figure in history. Anyway, she's got lore around her, so it seems like there would at least be a crew that is specifically trying to uncover more about her and where she lived and what it was like at that time.
And maybe they will. Maybe it's just going to take time.
Centuries.
Centuries, yep. It'll take time to get the funding and have specific teams that are dedicated to this one cause. Because there's so many places to excavate. There's so much in this world. Oh, man.
True. So crazy.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to move somewhere else across the world.
Oh, next city.
Oh, man. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
We're going to Lake Titicaca.
Oh, sweet.
We're going all the way to South America,
Yep.
to the Andes between Peru and Bolivia, to Lake Titicaca, which has so many different areas of ruins that are visible around that area right now. There is some of the most impressive ruins ever, pretty much out there. The Tiwanaku ruins, which are said to be some of the most fantastic engineering feats that we could possibly observe from at least 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's some of the oldest sites.
I really want to see Tiwanaku.
Me too.
Sarah, my favorite lake because of the name.
I know, right?
Beavis and Butthead too.
Titicaca. Yep. So yeah, there are a lot of different ruins around there. There is the Tiwanaku people. There is the Incas. And now what they have found more recently is the pre-Tiwanaku civilization, which they were not aware was here in this lake previously. They have no idea. They did not know who was living in that region before. They did not know if the Incas migrated there from somewhere else or what happened. But they have found old stuff. So they just recently discovered it in 2000. So also a very new discovery.
Yeah, that's super new too.
So they found an underwater temple that predates the Incan time frame.
Cool.
Which is so cool. So
Under
they think
the lake?
yes, under the lake. So the temple that they found, it's a large temple. It's 656 feet by 164 feet.
Wow.
So this is a large structure.
Yeah.
They're not sure yet. They haven't been able to date it 100% yet. So it's anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 years old. Hey, what's up, Link? Woo!
I think.
They found the Zelda Water Temple. Awesome.
Yeah, hooray!
So they also, in addition to finding this amazing temple, they found terraces that would have been used for growing crops back in the day. They found a very long road, which seemed like it was to transport the goods and such. And then here is a crazy fucking thing. They found a wall that is like a mile long. They found a 2,624 foot wall that they did not realize existed underneath this lake previously. They also found ceramics and metal objects. They found cooking utensils, human and animal remains underneath the lake. Boom. So they're planning to do an underwater museum, which is just a museum of the things that they've excavated from underwater. It's not going to be a literal underwater museum.
Oh, okay.
But they've got about 10,000 artifacts that they have pulled out of the lake.
No way.
Yes. Some of them from Inca times and some of them from the pre-Inca civilizations. So you've got the pre-Tiwanaku is anytime before the year 300. And then the Tiwanaku was from the year 300 to the year 1000 AD. And then you have the Inca from about 1100 to about 1570. So the Inca starting in 1100. All this stuff is vastly
Way
before
before
that.
all of that. Okay.
So they are working on it right now. But it was only recently discovered in the past 20 something years.
Cool.
So that is pretty neat stuff here.
Yeah. Princess was wondering if the wall was around the temple or if it's like a straight wall.
I did not hear them say specifically. That's a good question. But they did just say that they had found this massive wall, which is insane any way you slice it.
Cool.
So, let's see. Oh, we're not going to do that. We don't need to do that one. Let's try to make me do ad blocker things. Not necessary. Okay. So, let's check out this little video here. This will show us a little bit more of what was found.
The history of the Americas has long confounded the imagination. Here we find some of the oldest civilizations of the world in a place that was long forgotten and only rediscovered by the European culture fairly recently. It's fair to say that when history unfolded in the age of exploration, the indigenous people who existed here were seen as primitive by the rest of the civilized world. The indigenous people of these sorts of regions are survivors, and they continue to survive with survival instincts, and became reliant on their safe surroundings and dwellings that these people had settled for many generations earlier because it was safe compared to what they had already been through. Trauma is a very real human condition, and one we can only begin to understand from this perspective, and one which shouldn't be overlooked. A cataclysm brings death and destruction. The fallout from that had a cataclysmic effect on the minds of the survivors who witnessed the apocalypse and survived. Straddling the border between Peru and Bolivia in the Andes Mountains is one of the largest lakes and the world's highest navigable body of water. Said to be the birthplace of the Incas, it's home to numerous ruins. Its waters are famously still and brightly reflective. Around it is Titicaca National Reserve, sheltering rare aquatic wildlife such as giant frogs, among other exotic species. The Incas were one of these survivor tribes. They became a great civilization on the west coast of South America and are credited with constructing some of the greatest monuments of the Americas from antiquity, as well as leaving some of yet undecipherable markings on the landscape. However, even before the great Incan civilization, there existed an even older and more mysterious culture. Their origins are unknown, and what they left behind is one of the biggest mysteries in the world today. The culture of the Tiwanaku state are among the oldest cultures known to man. They accomplished some of the most intricately cut stone ever known in all the buildings of the ancient world, and it has been theorized that these people were doing this before the last great cataclysmic event that brought humanity to its knees. The only thing we know about the old empire of Tiwanaku state comes from the archaeological field of discovery these days and from the findings in several of these digs. Something mysterious has been thrown up about the understanding of who these people were, what they represented, and what their beliefs were all about.
Yes,
in April
Princess,
this year, a
one.
huge piece of the jigsaw was unveiled when divers conducted the very first systematic archaeological dive and excavation conducted in the waters of the Coa Reef, close to the island of the Sun in Bolivia's Lake Titicaca. Researchers found submerged evidence of ritual offerings made to supernatural deities, meaning religion existed in this part of the world a lot earlier than we thought. People often associate the island of the sun with the Incas because it was an important pilgrimage location for them and because they left behind numerous ceremonial buildings and offerings on and around this island. One researcher who took part in the exploration says, "Our research shows that the Tiwanaku people who developed in Lake Titicaca were the first people to offer items of value to religious deities in the area. The team used sonar and underwater 3D photogrammetry to scan and map the reef during a 19-day research visit to Lake Titicaca. Dredging the sediments in the lake, they found puma-shaped incense burners with fragments of charcoal present on the excavated deposits, and a number of gold, shell, and stone ornaments. The puma is known to have been an important religious symbol to the Tiwanaku, and a ray-faced motif depicted on 2 gold medallions suggests the offerings were supposed to explicitly address the main mythological figure in their religious iconography, according to the researchers. Interestingly, the researchers say these offering pieces, dated to sometime between the 8th and 10th centuries, didn't find their way to the lake by accident, but looked like they were designed to be submerged. It could be more probable, however, that this was a place of worship before the last ice age, when the waters of the lake were much more shallow than that of today. Evidence of this points to the existence of a depiction of a mastodon in the bed of the lake. Mastodons, of course, died out 11,000 years ago at the end of the Ice Age, and they must have existed when these marks were made. So, does this point to the true age of the site? The true age of the cultures of the world are unknown, but long before one old group of survivors gave way to another, the Tiwanaku would pray, slay, and lay their offerings at a place that is now covered with water and one of the world's highest peaks. According to the researchers, the presence of anchors near the offerings suggests that officiating authorities may have deposited the offerings during rituals held from boats. More than a mere cult in an extreme location, the ceremonies at Koa reflect a complex interaction of being situated at the center of the lake while being carried out by a small elite group. They also emphasize the display of powerful forces, as the dissemination of rituals focused on the representation of a ray-faced deity and smoke-gusting pumas, the sacrifice of juvenile llamas, and the conspicuous disposal of wealth. What do you guys think about this anyway? Comments below, and as always...
Juvenile llamas. Baby llamas. They were checking baby llamas in there.
So yeah, with the lake, like, if the lake is natural, how long has it been there? What were the levels at the time? Because they said there was an island in the middle where stuff was kind of deposited around, so maybe it was super low. If it was, like, could it be from an ancient glacier? How high up is it? Could there have been like a glacial peak that melted and created the lake, or rose the levels of the lake?
It's a very good question.
Like,
I don't know.
How high is this lake?
Let's find out. We're going to do some research. Yeah, I was wondering that as well. Like, that was, I mean, it was a long time ago, but it wasn't like many millennia ago. So why did it fill up? How are they using the land at that time?
Yeah.
And why did it fill up? That I do not know. We'll see if we can figure it out. Yeah, the video showed the island. There are still islands there. There's the Isle del Sol, which has a bunch of ruins on it right now that you can go see, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of ruins in the area around the lake, but this area that was used like for the temple and everything, like it was obviously not underwater at that point. So how did it become underwater? Honestly, I don't know. Nobody's addressing that so far, so I can't even really speculate. He's trying. He's trying to figure it out.
So
Yeah, because
These
it's in the Andes.
These
So
are different lakes. It's talking about different lakes.
Huh.
12,507 feet. So it's at
okay,
12,500 feet.
that's super high.
So that's pretty high.
Wow, that's really high.
So, yeah, with the peaks around it, it could have had glaciers up on top of those peaks at one point.
It could have, and then they could have melted and
And then
filled
they
the
could have
lake
melted
more.
and filled the lake even more.
That's
Um,
very possible.
And then
Yes.
with the Mastodon, when did Mastodon go
There's 5
extinct?
rivers that feed into it, though, it says.
Oh, okay.
So there's 5 rivers. If there was multiple melts happening from different regions, and those rivers had more volume, it
Yeah.
is possible that
Yeah,
that
if
could
there
have
was
caused
more
it.
glacial melt that just filled it up, like, seems like that the levels would have been really easy to rise in that lake specifically.
Interesting.
So Mastodon became extinct around 13,000 years ago, which that's pretty far back. The Younger Dryas was 11,800 years ago, which is when they think the big cataclysm that, sunk a bunch of these cities and got rid of a lot of the population happened. And there were, hunters and nomadic peoples back at the same time as Mastodon. So whatever civilization or whoever carved a mastodon on the rock, like they had obviously seen one. So this is coming from a civilization who had seen mastodons and were hunting them at some point. So somebody carved it on that rock. It may not have even been a lake at that point. It could have been before it could have been Ice Age. It probably was. And I bet that basin was pretty much empty during Ice Age. It may have rivers and stuff melting into it, but I bet that basin wasn't a lake at that point.
Yeah.
So there was probably people living in it and hunting
That could
through
be
it.
way, 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 way older than the ruins that they're finding anyway.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and that's a point too. It doesn't have to go along with the ruins. Like that could have been there forever. Maybe that was like a stop for the mastodons. Maybe they would stop and drink the water from the lake. If it was super low, maybe they would drink the water from the lake and they would go there to hunt them. So that was like a marker, like, hey, mastodons are here.
That's a really
type
great
of thing.
thought, actually.
Doesn't mean that they were living there and building this shit at that time.
Absolutely right.
But
that was a very good observation. Maybe it was Mastodon area rather than just someone doodling some art.
Yeah.
It could have been like hey, go look for this rock, and then you know where they're going to come.
Yeah, when you see the rock, this is their migration pattern.
Yeah, and that could have been 20,000 years ago or whatever. Could have been way, 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 way back.
Could have been way back, for sure.
Interesting. Mysteries.
Yeah.
But yeah, how neat that they found this cool shit.
Yeah,
in the
that's
lake
really
that
cool.
they did not expect to find. Like such huge structures too. They were like, wait a second, this is not what we expected to find.
Yeah.
In this lake. So, this world filled with mysteries.
Yeah. I want to know about that wall, too.
Oh yeah, see if you can pull anything up about that. See if it gives any more information.
See if there's just like a picture or something.
I wonder how clear the water even is.
Yeah, I wonder if you're in a boat on a good day, if you'd be able to actually see anything below you, or how deep it is, how far down is it?
Let's see. Would be neat to go see all the other ruins that they have that are above the ground. Okay, let's look at some image searches. Ooh, that's really cool. These bull statues.
Cool.
That's
a super boat.
awesome.
Wow, that's crazy. That's like a legit temple.
Yeah. Wow. Neat. So this is the Temple of the Sun, the Island del Sol on the little
Oh yeah,
island there.
yeah. Which is super cool.
That's super cool. Damn, look at those mountains.
So some researchers theorize that the submerged ruins are an extension of the walls of the Temple of the Sun,
Okay.
but they're not sure. They think they might actually be different. But if it was like, maybe if it started in the lowest point, and as the water was rising, they kept building over and like building off of it, maybe it was all over time that the stuff was built.
Yeah, it seems like it was regarded as a sacred site, and people just kept using the site
Yeah.
until it finally filled up, and then I'm like, well, okay, I guess we'll move to the area of land over here.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's a really neat site. And we'll cover the megalithic structures of that area in another show, actually, which we will be doing soon.
Oh yeah, it says that it's a containing wall. So yeah, it's got to be going around either this like a city or the temple itself, but it's a retaining wall
Got
of
it.
some sort.
Oh, these little huts are cute.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Go back up to the Moai looking one. Okay, where is the Moai one? Princess says something. Where?
Okay.
No, that's a wall.
Yeah, but it looked like a moai when you went real fast.
I'm wondering which one. I'm looking to see if anything pops out. That looks like.
Statue that looks like Easter Island moai, but not. That's a boat.
That's about. Oh, right here, but. Maybe
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy here.
Whoa, does look like a moai.
Interesting. Yeah, it does kind of look like it. That was a good eye.
Yeah. Interesting. I know that moai shape. There's been other things around the world that have been found that have that basic kind of shape. Some of them are more ornate than others, but it seems to be a running theme.
That's awesome. Cool, that was fun.
Cool.
Looking at some Titicaca pics.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready for the next destination?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Next up, we have a sunken pirate city.
Ooh.
Which is going to be super cool.
Pirate City.
Yes. Point Royal, Jamaica. It was a huge city. It was the largest city in the Caribbean at the time. And it was founded in 1494 by the Spanish. And it was a shipping and commerce hub. So, big city, lots of trading going on, things coming and going. There was lots of shops, lots of goods, and a lot of the rich English folk and Dutch and everything. They would, acquire their money from various different ways, and they would want to go to Port Royal to go spend the money. because there was a bunch of cool shit over there.
Okay.
So it was inhabited by these traders, and it was also inhabited by the pirates who would acquire goods sometimes, although not legally. We all know that there's corruption everywhere, and
The gray area.
some of the companies, I guess you would say, or organizations tried to take a more legit route, and they were, legitimate traders, and then some of them employed the pirates or just bought cheaper goods from the pirates or whatever and sold stuff. So it was a area of commerce, but also an area of debauchery at that time as well. So,
Yeah.
party town.
Party town.
Party
Party
town
town.
by the sea.
Hi, JT.
JT, what's up?
Nice to see you.
Hey, hey.
Welcome.
Nice to see ya. Glad you're here. So, it was doing pretty good for a little while. Unfortunately, it wasn't there very long. 1494, like I said, that's when it was created. And it made it all the way till 1692.
Okay.
So, once again, what do you think took this place out?
Earthquakes.
Earthquakes.
Getting rid
Fucking
of all the cities.
Bummer earthquake.
Man.
This was pretty bad. It killed, estimated between 1,000 to 3,000 people.
Wow.
From the initial earthquake.
Okay.
They imagine at least another 2,000 after the quake died from disease, from a lot of the dead bodies, from the people who were killed in the earthquake that they weren't actually able to properly dispose of. They tried to sink a lot of the bodies, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't work. It was poisoning the water. They couldn't handle the bodies fast enough, especially because everything was kind of ruined.
Yeah.
So the people that were left behind or were part of the cleanup and the aftermath, a lot of people got sick from it.
They tried to sink them? You gotta burn those. At that point, when you got that many and you have to get rid of them, like, you're gonna have to go with burning.
You're totally right, they should have.
Yeah.
But sadly, earthquake shook it up. Same thing, liquefaction was the demise of this amazing city. It just shook the city up. The ground underneath turned into quicksand, and shit just started crumbling into the fucking sea.
Wow.
So that is too fucking bad. But a kind of cool thing that they found a pocket watch, which stopped at a very specific time. So they knew exactly the time of the earthquake when the person was given back to the sea, essentially, when the earthquake, the stopwatch stopped working. So that was kind of cool. They were like, wow, we can actually pinpoint the moment of this earthquake right now.
Okay.
So that's kind of a bummer. It didn't make it very long, but it sounds like it was a really cool spot.
But how do they know the moment that the stopwatch, like, what if it was well wound and then it fell and then it kept working for like hours until it stopped?
I guess that's a possibility. But
Gonna have to be
I
a
would
margin
imagine
of
going
error.
into the water, it would have caused it to malfunction and stop ticking.
Maybe if it was mechanical, but they weren't mechanical back then. It was just like a wind. I don't feel like the water would stop it if it was just
That's
a
a
wind.
very good point. I don't know.
So I guess you have to know how long it would stay wound for, but there's going to be a margin of error
That's
before that.
very interesting. Okay, I don't know. I did not think about that at the time. I was just going on with the, what was revealed. So this is an illustration of the port city.
Of city.
Yes.
This is an illustration of city.
And this shows the area in which Port Royal was located.
Okay.
After the destruction of Port Royal, the main city moved to the mainland, which is now Kingston.
Okay.
So, that's too fucking bad.
Not too bad. But I bet there's a lot of cool shit in there.
Oh yeah, I bet you are right.
Pirate City.
About that.
That's where you go to find pirate treasure for sure.
Oh yeah,
How
there's
many
a bunch
doubloons
of cool
have they
shit.
found?
Well, this is a pretty cool video, so we're gonna check this out, and it's gonna tell us all about this cool city, which
Okay.
I thought was really fun. I mean, I love all the cities that we've talked about, but this one I thought it was really interesting because it's more modern.
Yeah, it's different
times,
from
you know.
all the ones we've been talking about. It is a little more modern.
Yep. So this isn't necessarily ancient, but it is not recent as far as with the technology we've got. This is definitely old pirate zone. So let's learn about this cool city.
Princess Creative License. Yeah, exactly.
At precisely 11:43 a.m. on June 7th, 1692, a massive earthquake caused the Jamaican seaside town of Port Royal to sink into the ocean in the blink of an eye. How Port Royal became a sunken city is a fascinating story, with the city's history every bit as interesting. Today, scientists consider Port Royal one of the most important underwater archaeology sites in the world. Welcome to Intrigued Mind, where today we will explore Jamaica's sunken city, Port Royal.
Hi, Isis.
Port Royal is the only sunken city in the world that was destroyed in modern times by a natural disaster. But what went on there before the sea swallowed it up?
I don't know.
Port Royal was founded in 1494 by the Spanish. The site itself lies on Jamaica's south coast and was an ideal harbor where up to 500 ships could drop anchor. By the 17th century, the Caribbean was considered the Wild West for Europe during the golden age of piracy, when privateers and pirates alike had a huge amount of control over the economy, and society itself was one of debauchery. Port Royal was by this time under the control of the British, as England had seized Jamaica from Spain in 1655. One of the first buildings constructed by the English in Port Royal was Fort Charles, which was built as a defense against the Spanish retaking the city. It was one of the few buildings that withstood the earthquake that sank much of the city, and it still stands today.
Cool.
The British Crown employed men to patrol the waters and keep the Spanish at bay. These men were commissioned by the Crown and were called privateers. The men who did this work without royal endorsement were called pirates. Port Royal was their sanctuary, and as a result, the city was a wicked place where sex, gambling, and boozing was the order of the day. It had a population of 6,000 to 7,000 people, making it the largest city in the New World, even bigger than Boston. The privateers and pirates of Port Royal were so successful and brought in so much liquid money that the city had more cash flowing through the hands of its citizens than London itself. The most well-known privateer was Captain Henry Morgan, a Welshman, whom the famous brand of rum was named after. Speaking of rum, the favorite tipple was called Kill Devil rum, where rum was mixed with gunpowder. People drank from morning to night, frequenting the taverns and brothels that counted for every 1 in 4 buildings in the city.
You better not be a
The
smoker
highlight
if
of
you're
Captain
drinking
Morgan's
gunpowder
career
whiskey
was his assault
or
on
gunpowder
Old
rum.
Panama City, where the Spanish treasury was housed. Along with gold and silver plate and jewels, Morgan and his crew brought 750,000 pieces of eight back to Port Royal. Captain Morgan's star rose high as a privateer for the British Crown, and so successful was his career as a privateer that he was knighted by King Charles II and was made governor of Jamaica. However, this tactical genius was eventually brought low by the city where he made his name and fortune, and Captain Henry Morgan died from complications related to his alcoholism.
Oh, really?
But he went down in history as one of the most memorable characters in the history of Port Royal before the earthquake of 1692 partially destroyed it. A survivor and eyewitness to the 1692 earthquake that rocked Port Royal was a man called Edmund Heath. He wrote, "The earth opened up and swallowed many people before my face, and the sea I saw came mounting in over a wall, upon which I concluded it impossible to escape." The morning of the earthquake, the sky was a strange brassy color and the sea was glassy. The air was heavy and sultry. Other eyewitnesses described the earth cracking open and clumping shut again, like a terrifying gigantic mouth in which people were swallowed alive. Some unfortunate people were trapped at the waist or up to the neck in the earth.
Oh no.
One lucky man, a Mr. Louis Galdi, was swallowed by the earth, then spat back up again and out into the sea, where he was later rescued by a boat. Today, it is estimated that this quake measured 7.5 on the Richter scale. It is also estimated that 1,840 buildings slid into the sea in a matter of seconds. The reason why the earthquake literally swallowed most of the city whole in the blink of an eye was because Port Royal was built on a strip of land composed of sand that lay on top of a water table that was 1 to 2 feet deep. Therefore, no foundations could be dug for Port Royal's buildings. When the earthquake hit, The sand became liquefied due to the high water table, turning into quicksand. Buildings, roads, people, and animals were immediately sucked into the ground. 2,000 people, 1/3 of the population, were killed that fateful day, with many more dying in the coming weeks due to the pestilential conditions from the rotting corpses left behind. To make matters worse, a tsunami hit not long after the earthquake, and it dragged parts of the city not taken by the earthquake out to sea. 33 acres of land were lost. 4 out of 5 forts were destroyed, and the cemetery where Captain Henry Morgan had been buried 4 years earlier was washed out to sea. The bodies rose to the surface to join those 2,000 souls who perished in the earthquake. Not surprisingly, looting began right away, with witnesses describing the living cutting the rings off the fingers of the dead. Another witness described a garish scene where dead bodies that were pinioned from the waist down in the debris, with their heads still visible, became a feast for the local dog population. Clergymen who looked down at this city of sin considered the earthquake a punishment from God for the wicked lifestyle of its inhabitants. Port Royal was also hit by hurricanes and fires after the earthquake of 1692, and not surprisingly, many of its inhabitants moved on to Kingston, which would become the capital city of Jamaica. Port Royal's halcyon days were over. Modern-day scientists recognize the archaeological and historical value of the Port Royal site, likening it to a modern-day Pompeii. Port Royal is the only sunken city in the New World, and due to its high level of preservation, it is unique. In 1959, nautical archaeologist Edwin Link led an expedition to survey the sunken city of Port Royal, under the auspices of the Royal Geographical Society and the Smithsonian Institute. It was during this expedition that it became clear the precise time at which the earthquake struck. Link and his team recovered a pocket watch from the sunken city, and its hands were frozen in time at 11:43. Edwin Link's contribution to the exploration of the Port Royal site paved the way for the work of Robert Marks, an underwater archaeologist who recovered some incredible artifacts from the Port Royal site 5 years later. In 1964, it was decided that Port Royal would undergo development to turn it into a tourist destination. This included dredging the waters where the sunken city lay. Marks knew that the time had come to do a proper survey of the site before it was too late. So, with the permission of the Jamaican government and UNESCO, for 4 years, he and his team retrieved and cataloged a wealth of items from the seafloor, 25 feet beneath the surface. Marks estimated that his findings accounted for a mere 5% of the treasures that lay within the sunken city. Marks found artifacts that dated as far back as 1000 CE, which belonged to the Arawak, the indigenous people of the Caribbean. Religious figurines made from stone and wood of their gods, and weapons made of jade were retrieved from the site, which indicates that the people of the Caribbean traded with other groups as far away as Guatemala. One startling discovery from the privateer era of Port Royal was that of a metal syringe that was used to treat venereal diseases in men. An analysis of this syringe's contents showed that it contained a mixture of molasses and lime juice, which was inserted into the urethra. Lead weights were recovered that had incorrect measurements carved into them, indicating that the sail and was an ideal harbor.
I totally fucked up. What was in the urethra?
Molasses and lime juice? It's further. Keep going. Forward.
Molasses and lime juice in the urethra. Okay.
Metal syringe that was used to treat venereal diseases in men. An analysis of this syringe's contents showed that it contained a mixture of molasses and lime juice, which was inserted into the urethra. Lead weights were recovered that had incorrect measurements carved into them,
I don't understand how that can fix your problems.
That's just what they believe to fix VD. Was molasses and lime juice. That's a hell of a cure they got going there. We're gonna shoot this molasses and lime juice up into your pee hole. It'll work. It'll be fine.
Wow. Okay.
And
I just had to.
And they assumed it did because they never saw the patients again.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Oh.
Anyway.
Thinking that the salespeople of Port Royal were cheating their customers. Perhaps the most precious find is now preserved at the Institute of Jamaica. An actual wooden treasure chest containing 3,000 pieces of perfectly preserved silver. Objects have been brought to the surface for preservation, which demonstrate that Port Royal was a place of religious tolerance. Catholic, Quaker, Protestant, and Jewish artifacts have been retrieved from the site. Thanks to the work of Robert Marks and his team, the dredging of the harbor was halted, thus preserving this remarkable site for future exploration of the intriguing sunken city of Port Royal. From 1981 to 1990, Donnie Hamilton led a team from the Institute of Nautical Archaeology on a 10-year-long project in which they made videos and took photos of the site. Entire buildings were preserved in the earthquake because they sank vertically. Some of the buildings discovered were a tavern, a cobbler's shop, and private residences. Artifacts brought up during this phase of Port Royale's excavation include Japanese weaponry and Chinese porcelain, which are a testament to the city's history as a trading hub. Pearl earrings and gold wedding rings are evidence of the wealth of its citizens, and guns, cannons, and ammunition tell of the city's pirate past. Hamilton's expedition, which wrapped up in 1990, was the last excavation of the sunken city of Port Royale. One can only imagine what other treasures lay hidden in the sunken city of Port Royale, just waiting to be discovered. For more videos on the most amazing forgotten parts of our history, be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel.
Wow.
Oh, that's freaking cool. So the buildings and stuff did just sink down just vertically, like they just like quicksanded down.
Yeah, it turned into quicksand and
Oh,
sucked them down.
I didn't really think that's how that happened. I thought they would like start sinking and like tilt and then break apart and fall. And
That's what I imagined too.
I never really thought about just whole buildings just submerging and falling below the sand.
Nope.
That's a hell of a mental image.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
and then like the ground just like opening up and swallowing people, and like that's not good.
That's horrible.
The universe definitely had it out for that town. That city was not going to survive. Jeez.
They said it was equivalent to what, 7.4?
7.5.
7.5. I mean, that's pretty legit.
That's legit earthquake. And then yeah, the tsunami came from it too. Like,
that's not good.
That's not good. That city had no chance. You had no chance, pirates.
What a cool place it would have been. That would have been very interesting. But scammy too, talking about the wrong numbers on the weights and everything.
Yeah. Very piratey.
Very piratey.
I think they sunk so fast that the buildings stayed vertical, and with the weight of the sand keeping the sides vertical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently.
That's crazy. Just to think about what that would have
really think about
looks
that being
like.
a thing. Yeah, just to see your whole city just like sink into the sand, it'd be trippy. To be like up on like a cliff or something overlooking that, and it just submerges. It'd be weird.
Must have been so scary because at first the ground starts moving and you're like, oh shit, and then you're like, oh shit,
Like,
you're just getting sucked into the
you're being
fucking
sucked
ground.
down, like, scary.
Damn. And then, if the earthquake didn't get you, then there was the tsunami, that came and took out more people.
Yeah. If that didn't do it, there's disease.
Yeah, and then there's disease. Oh man, it's not good. That sucks.
That's rough. And that went down when? 16 something?
1692.
1692.
Is when that happened.
Wow, that's really not that long ago.
Nope.
That's just, handful of generations back.
Yeah, dude, that's a bad earthquake. And the Caribbean isn't an earthquake-prone region.
Yeah.
Necessarily. I mean, shit happens everywhere, but it's not an earthquake-prone region. That's really interesting that it was such a large quake.
Yeah.
That sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't build your cities on the sand.
Yeah.
Which now we understand that more, and we know, based on looking at history, how it has gone very wrong sometimes.
This is true.
So,
yeah, those big
now I
mistakes
think
seem to
that-
stand out.
Yeah. I think now people know a little bit better, but at the time, I think they were just going on, visual. Okay, this looks like a good spot. This should be fine.
Flat. This is flat.
I mean, look at Seattle. They
Yeah.
built the old city of Seattle in a floodplain.
Yeah.
Which was a horrible and terrible idea, and it was completely unsustainable. So they ended up pouring a bunch of dirt from the mountains. Well, not even the mountains, the gigantic hills. They're like, okay, we'll build down in this floodplain, but there's these massive hills that nobody can even, traverse at all. So let's just like take the hills and smoosh it over the whole entire
Yeah.
city, and then build another city on top of it because we
Yeah.
fucked up.
That talking about a feat of engineering, that always blows my mind. Like they
Yes.
literally just started chopping the tops of these like mountains and like hills off and just pushing it down the side and filled in the floodplain with the tops of the mountains. Like that's a job. That is a job.
It is. It's super weird.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But good job. We live here now.
Yeah, I guess they weren't able to really realize or to think about those things or to know what was underneath the ground as much, like especially back in the older times.
Mm-hmm.
They did not know. But that's a traumatic thing. Like just imagining what that would have been like in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that is a man. I don't know. I don't know what to say. That's real bad.
But the fort somehow made it.
Yeah, good job for it.
And it's still
Way to do
there.
your job.
Which is really cool that it's actually still there, but the rest of it did not.
I see.
do
You
so
need
good.
to stop. You need
I
to
know,
lay
Isis
down.
is
You're
gonna have to
driving
go.
me insane right now. Please just lay down. Thank you.
Oh, she's up again.
But lay down.
She just could not decide where she wants to be. She wants to hang out with
just-
you. She wants to hang out with me.
Just
Back and forth.
walking back and forth.
Because we're not giving her enough attention. Still petting her, but like it's not enough.
I know.
Gosh. Let's see if there's any more drawings or anything like that from that time. If there's any more information.
I don't know more of what they pulled up.
Let's see.
And also the the molasses and lime juice venereal disease thing made me think that maybe we should do an episode that's a deep dive into like outdated medical practices
Oh, that would be fun.
because there's weird stuff.
I agree.
But that could be super fun and disturbing.
Talk about leeches, bunch of shit.
Bloodletting. How fun bloodletting was.
Okay, so we're doing an image search here.
The holes they would drill into the skulls back in.
You're ruining it.
antiquity.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
There's just so many ideas. So many ideas.
Okay, so these are photos of Port Royale. This is kind of neat seeing all the floor bricks here. What's this all about? I wonder what that was.
Table.
Table, it's round.
Yeah, the round table. Tilt it over.
Oh, you're just seeing this. I was seeing this whole thing as one structure. It looked like an airplane engine or something.
Oh, I think that's the sand. I think this is the sand behind it, and it's this little flat part.
Okay, that
was
makes sense.
sticking up out of the
Because, yeah, I was seeing that. It just kind of lined
Oh,
up
it
perfectly.
did,
So
yeah.
I thought it was a whole
Does look like an
thing.
airplane engine or something.
Yep.
I
But
see,
okay,
I
table, that
see.
does make more sense. Actually.
Oh,
You got
another
the
one.
super cool lion. This is nuts, though, this whole thing here.
Cool. We got 2 votes for the outdated medical practices. I'll have to add that to the list.
Oh, I think that's a super cool idea.
I should start a list of ideas.
Oh, here's the sucky thing here.
Sucky thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sucky thing is a sand sucker. That's what it is.
Drain the Sunken Pirate City. IMDb? It's a movie? Hold on, we're clicking on this. I have no idea what they're talking about.
All right. Drain the Sunken Pirate City, the movie.
Port Royal, or Royale, the wickedest city on earth, famous for Caribbean pirates. Torn apart 1692. Okay, we know all that. Okay, marine archaeologist John Henderson goes in search of what happened Scientific data combines with computer graphics to drain the waters to investigate final moments and resurrect past secrets. Okay. Well, if that is an actual thing, I'll check it out. Drain the sunken pirate city. Alright, I'm into it.
Yeah, I'm in.
6.4 stars. Okay. It's got some historians. Oh, it's got that guy.
Oh, yeah.
The guy that looks like Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, the most British man ever.
Yes. Oh, yes. Totally. Okay. Well, if anybody's interested, you can check that out. It was a made-for-TV movie. Cool. This looks like this is a drawing after the fact. Oh, no. Oh, man. Oh, no. Fuck. That's a crazy image.
Yeah.
Boo. Fuck. Oh yeah, it's just showing everything demolished and sinking in. And then you've got the forts that are back here, and those were the ones that stood.
Hmm. What was all the stuff up on the hilltops, huh? Or like higher land?
That's what it sounds like. It's kind of cool seeing the illustrations of that. Oh, god damn it.
Oh, there's the colored version of it down below, too. The same thing, but in color.
Yeah, they showed that one in the video.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, that was a city. For sure. Man, and it just sank.
It just fucking up and sank.
That's scary.
Oh, this photo looks cool.
Wow.
Neat.
That is good.
Cool.
Probably looks exactly like it.
Right? I'm feeling it. That feels closer to
feels like a
reality,
pirate city.
you know? Okay, full moon pirate party.
Aww. Fun. There was probably a drum circle.
Oh, yeah. And maybe flutes. Maybe there's some flutes.
Probably. Pirates did like flutes.
Sometimes like flutes. Or penny whistles, whatever, you know? Shit like that. Well, that's cool.
Super cool.
I wanted to see if there's treasure. Because they said they found a chest with a whole bunch of silver coins in it.
No way, really?
Yeah, in the video we watched, it said that they found a...
Oh, I missed that. I must have gone off thinking about other things. Oh, yeah, there's some findings.
Ew.
Silverware.
What's a silverware? Beads.
Oh, it's all beads, huh? The blue and the green and everything.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then a cannonball.
And a cannonball. Some wine bottles up there. Wine and whiskey bottles going on. Mm-hmm.
Rum, probably.
Some rum, yeah. I do think that it's interesting that Captain Morgan is named after a pirate that died of alcohol issues.
Yep.
So,
yep.
okay, good.
That is kind of funny.
Yeah.
What about this stuff here? Okay, here's some stuff that was dredged up.
Silver stuff.
Some steins.
Cool, Silverstein. Silverstein.
There's a skull on this.
Yeah, is it like a tomb?
I think so. Oh, here's a better photo of it. Damn.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
Or is it just like a marker for the city?
No, here lies the body of Louis Galdi, who departed this life at Port Royal, 22nd of December, 1739. So he's one of the ones that made it after the catastrophe. Okay, so he was born in France.
Oh, this was the guy that got swallowed up by the ground and then spit up into the ocean.
Oh, yeah, he was swallowed up in the great earthquake in the year 1692, but by the providence of God was by another shock thrown into the sea and miraculously saved by swimming until a boat took him up. He lived many years after in great reputation, beloved by all he knew, or all who knew him, and much lamented in his death.
Wow. That is a crazy story. To sink up into the ground like that and then to have it spit you out. Like, he must have been real close to the shore, so that as it was, like, shimmying and everything, he got shimmied out to ocean and just, like, spit up out of the...
But can you imagine? And I love that they put it on his grave. They're like,
yeah.
this was the guy
who
got sucked up and spit out and then saved.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Hell yeah, if I was that guy, I'd be like, you better put that on my grave. I want everyone to know that this happened. 'Cause that is crazy.
The man who was buried twice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Trippy.
That'd be neat to go see some of the gravestones there.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that one.
Cool.
It's very similar to one of the tombstones I saw in Scotland, in Edinburgh. There was a piratey one from some captain.
Huh?
Yeah, and the whole top had a cool ship on it. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to see if there was more treasure. What's going on here? What are we...
Oh, that's the reconstruction that they did of it. Of the Pablo Petri. They showed that in one of the videos.
Yeah. Vero Beach Pirate. That's not.
Super cool. And it makes me wonder when is this gonna happen again? Like, it's gonna happen again. We got all these other cities on shorelines and stuff that I'm sure are at risk. Like, are we gonna be able to see something like this in our lifetime? Like,
Sadly, we might.
we very well could.
Dude, so this is
In Florida.
actual pieces of 8 from Port
Cool.
Royal.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
How much is that thing worth?
I don't even know if you could even purchase it. Yeah, there's a bunch. Dated 1679. I don't know, I wonder. Let's see if we click on it. Let's see.
For sale, $5 million.
Sold.
Oh, it says so. You have to
No,
sign
I
in
wanted
to see it.
I know that's stupid. Damn, because that would have been so much cooler if we got to see how much something like that is worth.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah, I'm with you. I think it'd be super cool to go see that city, see all the markers and stuff. It looks like they have a museum based on it, which would be super cool. Or a museum, not based on it, but of the stuff that they found and uncovered from it.
Wow.
That'd be cool.
Cool.
If you're ever in Jamaica, now you know where to go in Jamaica.
Just don't be there during an earthquake.
Yeah.
That's all I got to
Right.
say.
Avoid earthquakes.
Because, good Lord, that is not where you want to be.
No, that's not good.
That's
apparently.
not where you want to be. Because the odds of somebody getting sucked into the ground and spat out and surviving twice,
Yeah.
it's probably not going to happen.
No.
Oh, this got all wonked out. I wonder
Oh no, weird.
what's up with that.
It's
Oh,
propped
yeah,
up.
look.
It's propped up with like a stick. That's good.
Oh, interesting. So,
Weird,
yeah, it
so
just like
yeah.
half sunk. Maybe it was farther inland, so it didn't actually
Weird.
sink all the way.
So yeah, out of that whole city, I wonder if you can go there and see things that were like half eaten like that.
Whoa.
That'd be trippy.
Apparently. At least this house.
At least one house, anyway.
Dude, that's so weird. Oh, that's super weird.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I clicked on that. Yeah, but you can still see this stuff. You can still see the wall. All the cannons. What a strange place. And then all the beads and everything. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's real cool.
Awesome.
Nice.
I was trying to find the damn silver treasure.
Hmm.
I wanted to see a pirate chest with lots of treasure in it.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe they found the chest and also found the treasure separately or
Maybe.
something. I guess I wanted to see something stupid like that. But
Yeah.
that says Cape Cod pirate ship.
It wouldn't have looked real anyway. We'd look at it and be like, I've seen better.
I guess. Okay, let's see this one here.
Or they just didn't take a picture of it because they were like, we don't need to record this. We're going to divvy this up. We're never going to mention this again.
Damn it. Another one that won't give me the price on this. Bastards. Oh, in stock. Oh, that's from Bolivia. But it's, let's just see, for fun, $16.29. Treasure, $1,350. Damn.
Okay.
Okay.
Spice Island. Cool.
Dude, this is what I've, like, always wanted forever. A pendant like this.
Yeah.
Like, I want that so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this one's cool.
Yeah, pirate.
Oh, it's
pendant.
$2,400 for this. It's got the fucking pirate ship
That
on the
is
other.
awesome, though. That's super cool.
Yeah. Dear Santa.
Yeah. Dear Rich Santa.
Dude, yeah, one side is the ship and then the other side is the crest or whatever it is. Dude. That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And there's like dumb like Disney Pirates of the Caribbean coin.
Lame.
That is not nearly as cool.
At least make it look old.
Pirate doubloons, man.
Yeah.
I can search pirate doubloons for sale forever. Because they're so neat.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Alright.
Neat.
Do we have another
Made it
city?
through that. We have one more city and we have limited information about the city, but we do have some info about the city here.
Limited info.
It's limited.
What is what city?
Okay. So, this, we do not have confirmation of the age for sure. There has been carbon dating, but so much of it is buried, we don't really know exactly what was going on down in this region. This is off the coast of Israel. There is a 10-acre site and a stone circle.
Cool.
So it is a small village, essentially. But what makes this really profound is it is believed, as the carbon dating has been done, to be between 8,300 and 8,900 years old.
Wow. Really?
Yes. Super, super, super old. So it's called Atlet Yam. And these are some of the stone structures that have been found. So it's in the eastern Mediterranean. Founded 6900 BC.
Wow. That.
So that's super
That's confirmed.
crazy.
That would end up being the. Well, no, we were the one we started at that was the oldest is like oldest city, right?
Yes.
So this isn't really a city, but
That's what I was thinking. I think because this is just like a Neolithic village, a small area versus a city, I'm imagining that they're putting them into separate categories with that.
okay, yeah.
Bummer about it. Similar to the Pirate City, it did not last very long. Now, this one wasn't necessarily just an earthquake, but this was due to the eastern flank of the volcano Mount Etna in Sicily falling into the sea, causing a 130-foot tsunami.
Boo. That'll do it. That will wipe some things out.
It will. It in fact will. It is very unfortunate that that happened. They didn't make it very long, but it was a smaller settlement that they can carbon date it to being about 9,000 years old. And it was wiped out in like no time. They're not even exactly sure when exactly, but it said around 8,500 years ago is when the volcanic collapse happened.
Okay.
So
I wonder what they carbon dated to get
I don't know.
the dates. Because you can't just take the rock, because the rock is going to be, as old as the Earth. So you got to find some kind of something organic or man-made.
I have no idea. But there's a little, very short video that shows these guys going down and checking out some of the stuff underneath.
Okay.
So I'll show you this real quick. There's not a lot of literature on this, which I find very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, surf's up, bro.
We are now in the North Bay of Atlantic. We are going to dive in the submerged Neolithic settlement at Tikyak. It is a 9,000-year-old settlement from the pre-Pottery Neolithic period.
Those fish are cool.
Now, you see, the village is 40,000 square meters. This information was gathered after 25 years of exposure.
Big fucking well. Oh, there's bones. That had to be what they dating. Was the bones. Wow. 10,000 years under the sea.
Wow.
Cool, right? I know it was super fast. I wish there was more to that.
So I just sent you one about it from the Smithsonian Channel.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, there's a longer episode, a timeline.
Yeah, the timeline one. Too. We might just have to watch that.
It's 48 minutes.
later,
We could totally do it for sure. Sounds awesome. Okay. Let's see.
A quarter-mile off the coast of Israel, archaeologists have discovered the perfectly preserved remains of a 9,000-year-old settlement with its very own Stonehenge. range.
Atlet Yam is like a missing link in terms of showing us how some groups would have made this transition from strictly hunting-gathering to sedentary agriculture.
Experts suspect this stone circle was built for one purpose.
No way. Well, that's awesome.
Oh, that was good. Okay. Wish there's more of that one. That was cool.
Yeah.
Shit. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
super cool.
really neat that they
So it had stone
dropped all
circles
those
too.
wells. Yeah.
It was, like, predating Stonehenge by a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of hinges, so I guess it's been a thing for a long time.
That's super hengy.
That's super hingy.
Going back like 9,000 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. There's a lot of hinge.
Wow.
A lot of hinge.
Okay. Fucking A.
Wow.
That's old. That's
awesome.
super
Yeah,
duper.
I want to learn more about
Old.
that spot for sure.
With that documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, we could watch it. I don't know if we'll get flagged for it or not, the full length documentary, but we could.
Yeah, we would be flagged. That would be straight up copyright flag. Is what that would be.
Because it's the timeline. I mean, we've done timeline ones before, but because it's a full length, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just too much to cut out for the thing. So
Okay.
it's not like it's just a couple minutes.
No, that is true.
Yeah. Clips are one thing, but full
But
episodes.
if anybody's interested and wants to learn more about it, you can Google Atlet Yam.
Atlet Yam.
And you will learn
And you'll find some
whatever
things.
you want
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. What was the name of the Japanese one?
Said it with a Y. Yohimojima or something?
Yohimojima. How do we do this?
Just hit that and see if it corrects it.
Japanese. With a Y. Yanaguni.
Yanaguni. Okay.
How about this?
Check that out. Let's
learn about this one. Because yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, and we went through all of our places that we're going to talk about, so I'm down to learn about a new place in real time.
In real time. Real time learning.
Real time.
Okay. Yeah, let's try that one.
Okay.
Inspired by Chid and Princess.
Cool. Okay. Japan's mysterious Atlantis.
I love Japan.
Me too. Me too.
見つかった時にはね、身の毛がよだつってわかるかな。毛がね、身の毛がよだってもう大変でした。ちょうどもう35、6年前でダイビングポイントを開拓中に偶然にも探したんですよ。見つかった時にはね、興奮しました。初めて僕が発見して、あ、これは与那国の絶対宝になるからシークレットにしようということでスタッフにもシークレットさせたんです。
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
C 照明先生、琉球大学の木村正樹先生が私と合同で調査を始めたんです。C 照明先生は荒竹さんと大変なものを発見したね。自然にしろ人工にしろこのようなものは大変な価値のあるものだと。例えばどういうところが人間が作ったことかっていうと、スパイラルステップ、螺旋状の階段とかね。
与那国に初めて行くきっかけは遺跡として認定されてしまうと潜れないんじゃないかっていう噂が当時あったので、いやじゃあちょっと潜れるうちに行ってみようと思って仲間のダイビングインストラクターと一緒に休みを使っていったのがきっかけですね。自然にできたものとは思えないような平らな地形があったりとかして圧倒されましたね。こんだけ平らなものとか直角な壁を見るとどうしても自然にできたものとは思えないの てそれをどうやって作ったんだろうとか昔の人は何を思ってこういうことをしたんだろうとかっていうのをこう考えさせられるような雰囲気っていうのはすごい神秘的ですね。学者さんとかが調べてる話を聞くと自然に出来上がるっていう可能性があるというふうな話を聞くとやっぱり僕としてはやっぱり人間が作ったっていうふうに考えた方が、ロマンがあっていいので、そう思いたいですね。
Robert Shaw. He tries to make everything natural. I
与
like
那
the
国
guy
の
when
海
he
中の
tries to
景
lean
観を
on
初めて
natural
見たの
structures
は
as well.
2016年だったんですけれども、最初に見た時に陸上に似たようなですね形のものができているのを知っていたので、陸から海面の下にかけてですね同じようなものが連続して見れることに、自分はすごい感動しました。そういうものはなかなか世界中でもいろんなところにフィールドワークに行ってるんですけれども、陸から海の底まで同じものが連続して見えるような場所、自分ではあまり見たことがなかったので、それが非常に新鮮で感動的でした。与那国の海中の景観は人が作った信じられている場合もあるし、自然の力でできたと考えられている場合もある。私の場合は自然の力でもですね形はできうると考えているんですけれども、ただ人が作ったという説もあってですね、琉球大学の名誉教授の木村正明さんという方が言ってるんですけれども、木村さんはですね特にそういう考古学的な調査を行っているわけではないで、そのようなデータもまだ出てきてないので、与那国モニュメントと言われているような場所と、ほぼ同じ形のものが陸にもあるので、それを考えると自然の力でもできうるものではないかなと私は考えています。地球科学のメンバーでですね与那国島の調査をチームでやっているんですけれども、そのメンバーでもですね人が作ったものと考えている人はいません。
But it's another thing to be like stair-stepped.
与那国モニュメントが人間が作ったものだと思う一つの理由としては、非常に直線上にできている地形というか形だと思うんですが、形も自然の断層だったり自然の割れ目で十分説明することができると思っています。与那国島を訪れたダイビングの方々からよく聞くのは、与那国モニュメントのところは非常に神秘的だというようなことはよく聞きます。
とにかくね一番ね素晴らしく見えるっていう季節は夏場なんですけど、見た時から発見した当時からですね地形は変わってません。
Cool. That looks neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, all those angles and stuff, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, because like they're showing all the stuff above ground, like it's got the layers and like where it would shear off like that, but some of those are just too perfectly 90-degree over too much of the land. Like I don't know. And then like the stair steps and stuff. And, I don't know. Maybe it was a case where they worked with the land, like that was kind of the landscape that they had, and they worked with it. So maybe it's an altered landscape. But
that's an interesting thought.
It does look affected by man, though. Would be my guess.
Me too. Not being a specialist, just layman's eye looking at it.
Yeah.
Those are very distinct angles.
Yeah.
And looked deliberately placed.
I agree with that.
Well, that was cool.
That was super cool.
I like that. Thanks for the recommendation of that. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Princess.
Cool. I'll have to look more into that. For sure.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, it looks like we covered all the ground that we were here to cover today.
Yep.
And it's good.
We got those grounds covered.
We did.
Or those undergrounds.
Yes.
Underwater grounds.
So good. I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight.
Yeah.
I
did. That was super fun.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
I agree.
That was good.
That was good. And there's so many more to cover. We could totally do more down the road too, because there's so many places to cover. I thought that was really fun, for sure. So maybe we will do more of that down the road.
So many more sunken cities, and then shipwrecks was another one we talked about doing. That could be a good one too.
Except, what do you mean except Japanese one?
You weren't watching. We just covered it.
Really?
You were not paying attention.
Oh my God. Chid.
Get out of here. Put Uncle Chid back on. We like Uncle Chid better.
We did. We just showed a video and just talked all about it. God damn it. You motherfucker.
And we gave shout outs to you for it. You didn't even care.
I know.
You don't care.
We said thank you for the recommendation.
You're just here because
And
we're
it was really
paying
neat.
you. You're not even.
Paying you in love.
Yeah.
No, that was very cool. Very freaking cool. So next week on Wednesday we will talk about Atlantis, and we'll see if we have enough material to talk about Atlantis for the whole time, or maybe we will couple that with some other sites as well.
Yeah.
The check bounced. Chid said. That's so funny. But yeah, super cool. We will find more fun things to tell you about for sure.
Yeah, we will.
So yeah, we'll show you next week a theory of a place that seems pretty damn convincing that it could be Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different ideas. So we're going to show you lots of different options, a bunch of different perspectives on where people think Atlantis is. But there's one, we saw a video recently that was pretty dang convincing. So we'll let
Yeah.
you guys make up your own minds.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh, that's okay, Alf. I'm glad that you have been listening. I hope you have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And you're bottling up some sauce. That's awesome.
Bottling the sauce.
That's so awesome.
Good. Good. Yeah, no, we appreciate our lurkers always.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're glad that you're hanging out and still listening, even if you can't be giving us sarcastic comments in the chat.
Yeah.
At least you're listening. Unlike Chid.
Unlike Chid who's not listening.
Motherfucker. No, it's okay. You've been here all night, Chid, and
Yeah.
we love you.
Definitely.
So, awesome, guys. Well, we are going to end transmission. Let's see if anybody is rocking right now that we want to go hit up. Moment. What do you think? Should we visit our axolotl friends today? I've been missing them.
We can go see some
They're pretty gosh
axolotls.
darn cute. And they've got other creatures too, huh?
Yeah, the turtles and the axolotls were the best ones, the best streams it looked like. The other ones were a little more janky looking, but
The axolotls are not looking super fancy right now.
no.
No, you just see an axolotl butt right now. I can't even see its cute fucking face.
Ren and Stimpy are a little bit out of it tonight, apparently. Oh, thanks, Princess. I'm glad you enjoyed.
Yeah, and Link too. I'm glad that you popped in. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you guys enjoyed our subject matter of the evening.
Totally.
And I hope you learned some things that you never knew. I learned things.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was super informative.
Yeah.
So it's great. I love being able to learn fun things and share it with you guys. And then if you guys know things that we don't know, and then you share with us, and then we learn from that too. So
Totally.
sharing is caring.
Sharing
I
is
love
caring.
it.
Sharon is Karen.
Yeah, maybe we'll just, instead of raiding out, we'll just end transmission tonight since
Yeah.
it's mostly lurkers at the moment anyway.
Mm.
But we love you guys very much. Thank you guys for being here with us tonight. And we'll be back on Monday with more weird news.
More weird news.
I guarantee
Super
you
weird.
there will be very many weird things to share with you on the Monday.
All the weird.
Let's give some mod love to Chid. We love Chid.
Yeah.
And
We love
he
Chid.
is the coolest mod. I don't know. We got Uncle Chid's hiding out somewhere right now. I don't know where he's at, but tell him I said hi.
Uncle Chid's drunk.
Yeah, mod love.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we will see you guys again on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Good
everyone.
night. Have a good weekend.